Chapter 33:21. Weiyang Palace. Lung Qingfeng paced back and forth in the palace, occasionally looking at the movements outside. Although he agreed to Luo Qingxun and Xiejiu meeting, although he kept telling himself that he must trust her unconditionally because she was his queen, his only queen. But for some reason, his heart that was as calm as a pool of stagnant water began to become anxious and boiling. This kind of anxiety and boiling made him restless, as if thousands of ants were gnawing on his body. An hour later, Eunuch Du came in with small steps and passed on a message. Miss Luo has already sent Xiejiu away. This servant also saw Xiejiu leave northern Yang City. He probably went back. Lung Qingfeng heard this and blurted out, "So what did they say?" Eunuch Du was startled and said with a troubled expression, "Didn't the king not allow this servant to eavesdrop? How would this servant know what they said?" Lung Qingfeng sighed. His heart was filled with an unbearable feeling. Right? Those words were indeed said by him, but he still couldn't suppress the desire to know. But this servant observed Xiejiu's expression and Miss Luo's expression. Eunuch Du winked and said that Xiejiu was like this, full of helplessness and tightly knitted brows. Miss Luo's expression didn't change from beginning to end, very indifferent. Really? How would this servant dare to deceive the king? Lung Qingfeng's anxiety eased a little at this moment. This proved that Xiejiu's response made him feel uncomfortable and uncomfortable. This servant also vaguely heard Miss Luo say something about goodbye. Goodbye, enemies. In the next second, Luo Qingxun walked in from the door with a sweet smile on her face. The king actually sent someone to eavesdrop. This isn't his style. No. Eunuch Du hurriedly explained. It definitely wasn't the king who sent this servant to eavesdrop. It was this servant who eavesdropped. Oh, Luo Qingxun turned her eyes and said, "Then whose servant is it?" "This servant is, okay, you can leave first." Lung Qingfeng waved his hand. "How about a game of chess?" "Sure." Eunuch Du very consciously put down the chessboard and went down. Luo Qingxun was still a white piece, and Lung Qingfeng was still a black piece. Is he still unable to let it go? After a few seconds of silence, Lung Qingfeng still asked the question buried in his heart. After he asked, he observed Luo Qingxun's expression. It was as indifferent as before, without the slightest change. He probably feels indignant. Luo Qingxun said with a smile, "That's how men are. They always want what they have lost." He should be very clear that his actions will cause a rift between him and northern Liang. Lung Qingfeng's fingertips trembled slightly as he placed his chess piece down unintentionally. If you country and Jade country were to wage war again, should I lend my troops to him? This was the question he wanted to ask the most. He wanted to know if the two words Rong Mo still had a place in her heart. It wasn't that he didn't trust her, but rather, he cared too much about her. Does he have anything or someone to give us in exchange? Luo Qingxun looked at the chessboard seriously and placed her chess piece accurately. Lung Qingfeng was slightly taken aback and shook his head. What if he doesn't have anything? What if he doesn't have anything? Luo Qingxun placed her white piece down and finished off his black piece. She suddenly looked up and revealed a brilliant smile. Then who cares if he dies? Chapter 33:22. Lung Qingfeng was a bit stunned. Seeing his black stones being swallowed by Luo Qingxun's white stones, he could only helplessly shrug his shoulders and say, "I lost." Luo Qingxun said with a soft laugh, "Rest early. You have to wake up early tomorrow." All right. Without knowing why, although he lost, Lung Qingfeng's heart was strangely happy. Was it because she said, "Who cares if he dies," or was it because she would be his queen tomorrow? The only queen in his life. The next morning, Luo Qingxun put on the phoenix robe that the Imperial Clothing Department had made for her and stepped onto the red carpet. Lung Qingfeng stood by her side and gently held her hand as they walked forward. The pear blossom trees were filled with phoenix dances, and there was the solemn sound of drums in her ears. Such a scene made her eyes redden unconsciously. Actually, she was just a cheap host. She didn't experience the pain that the previous host went through. After coming to this world, she had only made a single decision. And with this decision, how happy would her life be in the future? What? Actually, I was a bit nervous when I went to pick you up. Lung Feng raised his brows and his lips curled into a faint smile as he said, because I knew that I was going to pick up the queen that I've never met before. Luo Qingshun was a bit surprised. She thought that he had fallen in love with her at first sight, but she never thought that he had planned this for a long time. Because of the stars, you are my love calamity. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 100%. Was he moved by her words of love? Luo Qingshun revealed a faint smile and said with a slight nod, so the king is satisfied with this love calamity sent by the heavens. He was silent for a long time. Only when he stood on the high platform and gave her the title of queen did he say, I'm willing to use everything I have to exchange for you. I've lived in this world for too long, and I'm a bit tired. Zez. Luo Qingshun deliberately teased him with a smile. You can't think like this because you have me in the future. By the way, I've always been curious. How old is the king? It was rumored in the Jianghu that the king of the northern Liang kingdom had been on the throne for 180 years. How long was that? It's not that exaggerated. Lung Feng's silver hair fluttered in the wind. He cleared his throat and said, He's about the same age as the imperial tutor. Imperial tutor? State preceptor? Which imperial tutor? Luo Qingshun didn't react for a moment. Until the next second, she revealed a shocked expression and said, Heavens! King, you're already so old. Isn't that just like the rumor among the people? An old cow eating young grass? Lung Feng narrowed his eyes as a dangerous aura emanated from his entire body. He held her hand and said, I remember someone said that the state preceptor is not good at anything, right? No. Luo Qingshun immediately shook her head and said, Who the hell said such rude words? If I find out, I'll definitely give her 30 beatings and tell her to be careful with her words and actions in the future. I can't bear to hit her. Lung Feng gently looked down at her and said, But we can't not punish her. If we don't punish her, then wouldn't the Wang clan lose all face? Luo Qingshun heard this and muttered, Why are you talking about the Wang clan's face now? What did you say? No, nothing. Luo Qingshun hurriedly waved her hand and explained, I'm saying that the girls in the palace aren't very sensible. The king needs to train them slowly. There's no need to rush them. Don't worry, I'll train them slowly. End of chapter. Chapter 33:23. She did not sleep soundly the entire night. When she woke up the next day, her entire body was aching. Luo Qingshun thought, she really died from talking too much. It would have been better if she did not talk so much. A certain black-bellied Lung Wang vented all his resentment on the wedding night after the coronation ceremony. Not to mention how hard it was to serve this man who had been abstinent for nearly 100 years. Even an experienced person like her was tormented by his exuberant energy. Is the Empress awake? Xiaomi walked in with a basin of water to wash her face. King, this servant is waiting. Did the Empress sleep well last night? Cough, cough. Luo Qingshun gently lifted her sore right hand and knocked on Xiaomi's head. Why are you being naughty from Xiaoyu? Why are you so naughty? Please forgive me, Empress. Xiaomi chuckled. This servant is happy for the Empress. Empress is the first master of the Northern Liang imperial harem. Even though when she first met Luo Qingshun, she felt that this woman treated the Lung Wang differently. She did not expect her to rise so quickly and become the Empress of the Northern Liang imperial harem. Since you're the first, you have to set an example for the Empress. Luo Qingshun looked at Xiaomi. As the top palace made of the Snow Moon Palace, you have to teach the others well in the future. This servant understands. Luo Qingshun looked out the window and saw the snowflakes falling one by one. It was like early winter was about to arrive. She always thought that she would be very busy after becoming the Empress. But when she really became the Empress, she became even more idle. Before she became the Empress, there were people who wanted to curry favor with her and often visited her Snow Moon Palace. However, after the coronation ceremony, those people would not be able to come here so brazenly. Because it would cause gossip. For example, people would say that she was trying to curry favor with the rich and powerful. She thought that since she was idle, Lung Qingfeng would be very busy. She did not expect him to be even more idle than her. If she did not stay in the Weiyang Palace, he would go to the Snow Moon Palace 3 to 5 times a day. Luo Qingxian saw that he was tired of walking back and forth, so she moved to the Weiyang Palace. It wasn't to the extent of indulging in debauchery every night, but it really didn't seem like the empress who worked hard for the country. When I was observing the stars last night, I noticed that the stars in the southeast were gradually dimming. It's difficult for the entire galaxy to form a tripartite balance. Lung Qingfeng said as he played chess with her. I'm afraid you country doesn't have much time left. Luo Qingxian shrugged and sneered. It was already burning out. If I hadn't used my ability as a heaven's fate master to change time and space, it would have already died. Hearing this, Lung Qingfeng looked at her with some heartache and said, But you still did it, didn't you? What a pity. Luo Qingxian shrugged and chuckled. He still sent me out as a bargaining chip. To Rong Mo, his empire is more important than anything else. If you two meet again, did the king forget? Luo Qingxian rested her chin on her right hand and said with a smile, If we meet again, we will be enemies. I feel that would be good if we meet again. It would be best if we bring that Yunfei along and settle the old and new grudges together. Although she did not know what the new grudges were, there were definitely a lot of old grudges. All right. Lung Qingfeng raised his eyes and looked at her with doting eyes. I'll always be with you. No matter what the situation was, he would accompany her through it because he wanted to personally take revenge for the bullying she suffered. End of chapter. Chapter 33:24. At the same time, in Yu Country, Xie returned to Yu Country 3 days after the coronation ceremony. He told Rong Mo everything that Luo Qingxian wanted him to say. Rong Mo's eyes turned colder. Did she really say that? Rong Mo closed his eyes, feeling a throbbing pain in his heart. He couldn't believe that Luo Qingxian would say something like that. She had always been so gentle. But when he thought of the day at the Supreme Court, her cold expression was so cold that it kept people at arm's length. He could imagine her expression when she said those words. Your Majesty, that is indeed the case. Xie replied, Consort Qing, Lady Luo should be the Northern Liang's consort now. I still don't understand why she chose Northern Liang, which is further away, and not Jade Nation, which is closer. Rong Mo laughed at himself coldly. Now that I think about it, I roughly know the reason. But she didn't know the Northern Liang's king. How could she? She's a divinator. Perhaps she has abilities that we don't know about. Rong Mo leaned against the dragon throne, feeling weak all over. If it was said that his life was filled with darkness, then Luo Qingxian had been his only source of light. But this ray of light no longer belonged to him the moment she left Yu Country. Northern Liang's queen. What a sarcastic word. She had been in Yu Country for so many years, but she was only consort Qing. But after she left Yu Country, she went to Northern Liang and became the queen of the most powerful man in the 3 kingdoms. That man, he was like a god. Rong Mo closed his eyes and said, You may leave. Let me be alone. Yes, just as Xie was about to leave, Eunuch Li rushed in and knelt down. King, General Pingyuan requests an audience. So late? Is there a military matter? Eunuch Li said anxiously. Jade Country is attacking Yu Country again. This time, they have joined forces with the barbarians in the south. What did you say? Rong Mo was shocked. Let the general in immediately. Ping Yuan's expression wasn't very good. It was probably because he was troubled by the military situation that his entire person seemed very heavy. King, I didn't expect Jade Nation to recover their military strength so quickly. Ping Yuan furrowed his brows and said, I'm afraid there's only one way to deal with Jade Nation. What is it? Please help me again, Prince of Northern Liang. Previously, with the help of the Northern Liang army, they were able to defeat the Jade Nation with ease. One had to admit that the Prince of Northern Liang, Lung Qingfeng, was really powerful. He was like a god. Without his help, Even two Jade nations would not be able to win. However, in the next second, Rong Mo rejected her without hesitation. Impossible. Ying Pingyuan was stunned for a moment. Ever since Luo Qingchen left, his daughter Ying Yunfei had become the most powerful woman in the Yu Kingdom's harem. He hadn't seen Rong Mo so angry in a long time. The last time was when he was imprisoned in the Supreme Court because of Luo Qingchen. King, if I say it's impossible, then it's impossible. Rong Mo narrowed his eyes and said softly, if you can't even defeat the defeated Jade Nation, then I'm afraid I'll have to take back your title as the general. King, please calm down. Ying Pingyuan saw that Rong Mo's expression was extremely bad and quickly knelt down. I'll go prepare immediately. End of chapter. Chapter 33:25. Rong Mo didn't say anything else and just waved his hand to dismiss Ying Pingyuan. His heart was filled with a mixture of emotions, filled with an unbearable feeling. Lung Qing Feng. Lung Qing Feng. Lung Qing Feng. He had already taken away the most important thing to him, and now he had to beg him again. As the king of Yu country, he was high and mighty. This time, he really couldn't do it. Actually, he had long known that his country was in the midst of storm. He just wanted to hold on and hope for a miracle. Northern Liang was as strong as a 1,000-year-old tree. Jade country couldn't do anything to it. All these years, Jade country had been constantly subduing the surrounding small countries and expanding its territory. As he grew stronger, Yu country became more and more dangerous. However, the two generals of Yu country didn't have the courage and perseverance to subdue small countries. As time passed, Yu country became more and more desolate. Now, the country seemed to have reached the point where it was on the brink of death. Suddenly, he felt a little regretful. If the country was destined to be destroyed, why did he send her away? If she was still by his side, he would at least be comforted. Unfortunately, everything couldn't go back. General Ying Pingyuan returned to his residence and immediately arranged for his servants to secretly inventory his assets. He also informed his daughter Ying Yunfei and his son Yinghua that the world was about to change. After so many years of fighting, although he didn't win many battles, he was very clear about the situation on the battlefield. He knew what battles could be won and what battles couldn't be won. This battle was definitely not going to be won. Father, are we really leaving? Ying Yunfei changed into her private clothes and left the palace in the middle of the night. She didn't feel good when she heard such news. Now, she was the rightful master of the 6 palaces and had a considerable status in the harem. If she wanted to leave Yu country, she had to leave all her vanity behind. In her heart, she was extremely unwilling. Father and your brother can't fight this battle. Ying Pingyuan said earnestly. If we fight, we'll be throwing our lives away. Father doesn't want to throw our lives away. Then where are we going? Are we going with the king? Ying Yunfei felt as though a bolt of lightning had struck her from the heavens. It was as if everything that he had just obtained had suddenly turned into a bubble, becoming a fleeting cloud. Of course we're going to Northern Liang. Ying Pingyuan thought for a moment and said, if the Jade country succeeds in conquering the Yu country, then the southeast region will belong to the Jade country, and there will be no place for us to stay. If the king is willing to give up his empire, we will go to Northern Liang together and bow down to him. But the king, even though Ying Yunfei didn't know Rong Mo well, she knew that it wasn't easy for him to win this empire. He was most likely unwilling to give up and go to Northern Liang to bow down to others. You're right to be concerned. Ying Pingyuan cleared his throat and said, based on the king's personality, he will not go to Northern Liang and bow to the cold king. So, we have to leave as soon as possible. Father, I want to ask him. Ying Yunfei bit her lips and said, I'm just a woman. I'm his wife after marrying him. Without him, wouldn't I be a widow? She was such a vain and prideful person. How could she allow herself to become a widow? Good. Go ahead. Ying Pingyuan sighed and said, but you have to wait until father and brother leave Yu country. Otherwise, I'm afraid it will be difficult for father to leave. Please remember the domain name of this book, .com. Wonderful book mobile version website, .com. Chapter 33:26. Yu Palace, Lili Palace. This palace used to be called Qing Luo Palace and was where Luo Qingchen lived. After she left Yu country, Ying Yunfei took down the plaque of this palace and did not allow anyone to clean or repair it. Once, when he happened to pass by, he saw an empty gate without a plaque, so he immediately gave it a new name. Lili Palace, Lili. If the two of them were separated, what would be left? When Luo Qingchen was still in the Yu country, the front yard of the palace was filled with colorful flowers and plants, but now it was completely bare and looked quite desolate. Rong Emo closed his eyes and drank cup after cup of wine. His eyes were filled with her figure. Her every move, every word, every smile was perfect and beautiful. That longing was very special. It seemed to revolve around his heart, but also seemed to be very far away from him. It had no shape and no fixed position. It was a silent temptation, a beautiful scenery, an exploration that he yearned for day and night, an intoxicated obsession. Only by drinking a mouthful of wine and blurring his consciousness could he see her clearly. Is this the ending you wanted? Rong Mo laughed self-deprecatingly and leaned on the soft couch that she used to love the most. His eyes were red. If you knew that I missed you so much, would you still be his queen? Suddenly, he felt that she was a heartless person. Her cold expression in the Supreme Court was like a basin of cold water, drenching his burning heart. Your Majesty, why are you here? Ying Yunfei was wearing a pomegranate red dress that was embroidered with 2 nests. She walked in with large strides. She had searched for him for an entire night, but she couldn't find him in either his palace or the imperial study. She could only send people to continue searching. Little did she know that she saw his eunuch Li Shang. She thought for a long time, but couldn't remember where this Li Xian palace was. After asking eunuch Li, she found out that this was the palace that the B***TCH used to live in. Didn't she smash the plaque of Qing Luo Palace? She didn't expect Rong Mo to install another one. Li Xian Palace? What did he mean? Could it be that he still couldn't forget her? Due to the resentment in Ying Yunfei's heart, when she entered the inner room and saw Rong Mo drinking away his sorrows, her tone became even worse. Did you know that I've been looking for you for a long time? How can you come to such a dirty place? Ying Yunfei's eyes were filled with disgust, and her tone was very sharp. Dirty? Rong Mo raised his right hand and wiped the table in front of him. Why don't I think so? Before Luo Qingchen left the Yu country, Ying Yunfei gave him the feeling of a gentle and lovely little girl. She often said some heartwarming words to him. She gave him a feeling of innocence, but this innocence seemed to be an illusion. King. Ying Yunfei clenched her fists tightly and suppressed her anger. Now that Jade Nation has already reorganized their army and is planning to attack us together with the barbarians, the king is still drowning his sorrows in wine, thinking about a woman who has betrayed us. If you do this, won't the hearts of the Yu Kingdom's people turn cold? Pa! A clear slap resounded throughout the inner room of Li Xian Palace. Ying Yunfei couldn't withstand the force and fell to the ground while covering her face. Her tears flowed down like pearls from a broken necklace. Rong Mo narrowed his eyes and looked at her coldly. Firstly, she isn't the woman who betrayed us. Secondly, your Ying family is the one who betrayed the Yu country. Chapter 33:27. Ying Yunfei's body froze when she heard that. Her originally arrogant and wronged face instantly turned pale. She had just returned from outside the palace, and had only just found out that her father and brother were leaving Yu country. How did Rong Mo find out so quickly? Impossible, absolutely impossible. She must be scaring herself. Calm down, I must calm down. King, what are you talking about, this concubine? This concubine doesn't understand. Ying Yunfei bit her lips. This concubine is only worried about the king, so I specially came to look for you. Do you really think that this prince doesn't know anything? Rong Mo's cold eyes narrowed as he emitted a cold aura. How did this prince snatch this country from the hands of so many brothers? Don't your father and brother know? There were indeed many things that he couldn't do anything about, but that didn't mean that he didn't know anything. The intelligence network that he had built up over the years was already rather complete. when he found out that Jade Country and the barbarians were going to attack Yi Country again. He had uniquely investigate everything. The actions of the two Ing family generals had long been under his surveillance. However, this didn't seem to be important anymore. How great would it be if he could turn back time? How great would it be if she hadn't used her ability as a divinator? If he had the chance to choose again, he believed that he wouldn't make the wrong choice this time. Some things were destined to not belong to him, so there was no need to force it. As for those things that belonged to him, even if he had to risk his life, he wouldn't let them go. King, please calm down, King, please calm down. Ing Yunfei knew that her father and brother's plan to escape had been exposed and hurriedly kowtowed. If this concubine's father and brother can win this battle, they will definitely go. Oh, you mean to say that all the wars in this world are fought only if they can win, and if they can't, they will betray the country and flee? This concubine... Ing Yunfei lowered her eyes, as if she was thinking about something else. Then she said, "This concubine pleads His Majesty to spare my father and brother's lives on account of their hard work for the Yu Empire. Spare their lives." Rong Mo closed his eyes and tapped his slender fingers on the table. After a long while, he said, "I'll let them go. Many thanks to the king. Many thanks to the king." Ing Yunfei let out a long sigh and said, "Actually, this concubine came to find the king today for this matter. I'm afraid, since this concubine is already married to the king, I hope that the king can live a carefree life. If we really cannot protect the Yu kingdom, the king has already done his best, right?" Ing Yunfei knew that the most important thing to do at this time was to reason with him. After all, Rong Mo already knew that his father and brother wanted to betray him. If he didn't allow it, her Ing family would probably perish before Jade Nation could trample over Yu Nation. Hee hee. Rong Mo picked up the wine flask on the table with his right hand and took a big gulp before laughing coldly. "What do you want?" In truth, he knew why Ing Yunfei would say such words. It was not for Yu Country, nor was it for Yu Country citizens, nor was it for him. In fact, it wasn't even for her father or brother. Everything she did was for herself, so that she could continue living. Therefore, at this moment, he was suddenly curious. Why did this woman say so many seemingly reasonable words? "King, why don't we go to Northern Liang Kingdom?" Ing Yunfei narrowed her eyes as a sharp glint flashed across her trembling eyes. She looked at Rong Mo and said, "This concubine heard that the king of Northern Liang cherishes talents. Perhaps he will accept us. At least we won't have to die, right?" Chapter 33:28. Rong Mo was dumbfounded. It was as though the light in his ink-black eyes had disappeared. He knew very well what the reason was. It was a reaction caused by the endless self-mockery in his heart. Going to Northern Liang and calling Lung Qingfeng king. What a joke. Why? To live? Since when did he care about his life? If he cared about his life, he wouldn't have nearly committed suicide back then. If it wasn't for him, his pride would have left this world with his death. Perhaps saving him back then was the wrong decision. If he had died back then, she wouldn't have had to suffer so much she wanted to make up for it. Even if she had to use her broken pride to make up for it, it didn't matter. "I think you're right." Rong Mo's eyelashes trembled. He took a deep breath and said, "Then let's do as you say." King, you've really moved me." Ing Yunfei wiped her tears and looked at Rong Mo. "I'm willing to follow you to Northern Liang. We could buy a mansion and hire a few servants. There's no difference." Actually, there was a difference for Ing Yunfei. She still preferred to enjoy her current life. Although she wasn't the queen of Yu Country, she was high and mighty. Everyone wanted to curry favor with her and flatter her. The feeling of having his vanity satisfied was an indescribable pleasure. However, this was the only way now. She could only blame herself for being unlucky. She couldn't be a high and mighty concubine anymore. After all, life was more important than vanity. Mansion? Servants? Servants? Rong Mo raised his brows. He seemed to be mocking Ing Yunfei, but also mocking himself. "Do you know what kind of ability the Northern Liang Prince has?" Northern Liang Prince? Probably because she had cried too much just now, Ing Yunfei hurriedly wiped her tears and said, Chinchia only knows that he has been in power for many years. He seems to be a very powerful person. His most powerful point is that he can predict the future in a short period of time. Rong Mo sneered. Therefore, he will definitely know if we head to northern Liang City in a grandiose manner. At this point, Rong Mo seemed to have recalled something as a faint glimmer flashed across his eyes. Lung Qingfeng can predict the future. Did he know about it when she went to northern Liang? That was why he could make her his queen in such a short time. His heart skipped a beat. That unbearable feeling of suffocation was accompanied by the alcohol. She had once regarded him as her life's faith, but one day, she had suddenly become someone else's treasure. It was as if something had been taken away from him. Ying Yunfei frowned and thought for a moment before asking, but Northern Liang isn't afraid of Jade Nation. Even if the king of Northern Liang knows that we're going to Northern Liang, will he do anything to us? She didn't know why Rong Mo had such an expression, but it made her suspicious. It was rumored that the king of Northern Liang never cared about these things. Would he really embarrass them or chase them out of Northern Liang? That's right, he won't. Rong Mo raised his brows slightly, a dark glint flashing across his eyes. But that's only because he didn't in the past. Why? Rong Mo's words were so profound that Ying Yunfei couldn't understand what he meant. You only know the king of Northern Liang, but do you know who the queen of Northern Liang is? Chapter 33:29. Ying Yunfei heaved a sigh of relief. King, you don't know this, but the Northern Liang king doesn't have a queen. She knew about this. Hence, when her father and brother told her that they were heading to Northern Liang to be their last safe haven, her heart actually throbbed. In terms of beauty, she didn't lose to anyone. Although she was already married to Rong Mo, the times created beauties. If the Northern Liang king took a liking to her, it would be the biggest change in her life. Yes, Rong Mo's lips curled into an extremely cold smile when he heard that. You're right. Perhaps I'm ignorant and inexperienced. Go and prepare. We'll head to Northern Liang in 3 days. Rong Mo spent 3 days settling the final administrative matters of Northern Liang. He opened the national treasury and distributed all the silver to the citizens. The women in the harem asked them to leave. However, there were a few women who had feelings for him who refused to leave. Hence, he decided to bring them along with him to Northern Liang. He sorted out his most outstanding guards and a few loyal ministers. They were all willing to accompany him to Northern Liang. Even if they couldn't fulfill their ambitions, they didn't mind keeping a low profile for the rest of their lives. At this moment, Rong Mo suddenly understood that some things weren't meant to be held tightly in one's hands. Those things that were once in one's possession were the deepest form of wealth. Jade Nation naturally knew about this as well. The king didn't intercept anyone from Northern Liang and didn't attack the city either. Since Rong Mo chose to abandon the city and escape, there was no need for him to attack forcefully. Why waste time? 3 days later, Rong Mo left Yu Country and his palace. That day, Yu Country was covered in snow. The ground was frozen and the crows were crying. Hence, Yu Country was destroyed. From then on, it wasn't a tripartite balance of power anymore. In the carriage, Rong Mo glanced at Yu Country behind him. He closed his eyes and sighed deeply. Ying Yunfei didn't sit in the same carriage as him this time. She was still dressed up elegantly in silk and satin. As for the concubines who followed Rong Mo, Concubine Liang and Concubine Shu, they were dressed very simply. At first, they weren't used to it, but gradually got used to it. Are you thirsty, king? Do you want some water? Is the king tired? You could take a rest. Rong Mo shook his head and raised both his hands. We are very happy to have you. We have already sent people to bring your parents to a safe place in Northern Liang. You can go look for them when you reach there. No. Imperial Concubine Liang immediately knelt down and said, This concubine is willing to accompany the king all the time. Me too. From today onwards, you don't have to call yourselves my concubines. I'm no longer your king. Rong Mo's brows twitched slightly. I'm not going to Northern Liang to make a comeback, nor to spend the rest of my life peacefully. I have something to confirm with someone. It hadn't even been a month since she left Yu country and became the princess consort of the northern Liang king. Why did she want to marry Long Qingfeng? For power? For revenge? To piss him off? Or perhaps she simply fell in love with someone else. He wanted an answer. Without an answer, he felt that even if he died, he wouldn't be able to rest in peace. If possible, he greedily wished that there was still a possibility between them. Chapter 33:30. After the Empress conferring ceremony, Luo Qingqian's life could be said to be leisurely and contented. Northern Liang was different from Yu country. She was the only one in the imperial harem. Other than making tea, playing chess with Long Qingfeng, and occasionally planting flowers, she had nothing else to do. However, she received a piece of news. Although Long Qingfeng did not tell her, she actually knew about it. The king of Yu country had surrendered, and the two great generals were nowhere to be seen. Although no one knew where Rong Mo went, according to Long Qingfeng's character, he should have discussed it with her. The reason why he did not discuss it with her should be because Rong Mo and the others did not go anywhere else. It was northern Liang City. Your Highness. Xiaomi walked in with a pile of clothes and said, "These are the clothes that the king ordered the Imperial Clothing Bureau to make for you." Clothes made again? Luo Qingqian put down the teacup in her hand and walked over. There are over 100 winter clothes made. If they are left there, they will turn to dust. That is because the king dotes on your highness. Xiaomi pursed her lips and said with a smile, "In the past, there was no master in the imperial harem. The king does not like luxury. Although the clothes he wears are luxurious, there are not many of them. The Imperial Clothing Bureau seems to be very busy now. When this servant went to take a look, I found that they had already started making spring clothes." Luo Qingqian thought, if this was the modern era, opening an online shop would be very profitable. "Leave it there." Luo Qingqian shrugged and said with a smile, "In a while, tell the Imperial Clothing Bureau to stop making winter clothes. They will turn to dust if they are left there. I don't like these things, and I don't like them that much. It was good to have nice clothes, but if there were too many, it would feel like adding flowers to brocade." Luo Qingqian's brows moved slightly, and a faint smile flashed in her eyes as she continued, "I am very bored. In a while, let's go to Weiyang Palace and ask the king to let us go out for a walk." "Your Highness wants to go out of the palace?" Xiaomi lowered her eyes and said, "Now that your Highness is the queen of northern Liang, it is not good to go out of the palace as you wish. Just now, I heard from a nanny who was delivering cloth that the 10 great scholars are gathering at Yiyang Tower today. There will be a good show to watch." Xiaomi said helplessly, "Your Highness doesn't remember much of the usual matters, but you remember this very clearly. However, will the king allow your Highness to leave the palace?" Luo Qingqian thought for a moment. Whether Long Qingfeng would allow her to leave the palace or not, her heart was as clear as a mirror. He would definitely agree, but he would definitely follow. The outside world was so beautiful. If he brought a family, he would definitely be restrained by many things. "Xiaomi, I think you have a point." Luo Qingqian flipped her hair and said, "Why don't we dress up as a woman?" "Your Highness, are you not going to ask the king?" Xiaomi was slightly stunned. She felt that her Highness was joking with her. Luo Qingqian shook her head and said, "No. I have a feeling that our king will find some reason to reject me. If that's the case, why don't we sneak out of the palace?" "But don't worry." Luo Qingqian waved her hand and said, "No matter if we leave openly or sneak out of the palace, he will definitely know. So there is no difference." Xiaomi looked like she still wanted to say something, but seeing her determined gaze, she could only bitterly spread her hands and said, "This servant will go and prepare the clothes now." "Quickly prepare. You still need to help me comb my hair." "Yes, my good Highness." Chapter 33:31. Leaving Xiaomi behind at that time was definitely the best decision, because Xiaomi was very intelligent, whether it was the way to deal with things or the efficiency of doing things. When she put on a white robe and stood in front of the bronze mirror, she did not forget to praise, "Which family's young master is this? He's so good looking." "Your Highness, don't look anymore. The sun will set in a few hours. We should go and return as soon as possible and not let the king find out." "And that's reasonable. Although Luo Qing-chun looked like she agreed with her, she didn't think so in her heart. Xiao Mi, you're too naive. What kind of person was Lung Qing-feng? He was a man who had lived for 100 years and had the ability to predict the future. Even before they left the palace, Lung Qing-feng had already seen them leaving the palace. Wasn't that scary? The truth seemed to be so. Imperial study. Lung Qing-feng, who had originally planned to find his queen to play chess after dealing with government affairs, suddenly saw a very unpleasant scene flash before his eyes. In the next second, he frowned. Eunuch Du immediately said, "Did the king encounter something troubling him? Why don't you tell this servant and let this servant share the king's worries?" As the saying goes, accompanying a monarch is like accompanying a tiger. Following Lung Qing-feng, observing his emotions was part of his duty. Lung Qing-feng rarely frowned. Usually, this frown meant that something big had happened. The queen has left the palace. What? Eunuch Du did not control his emotions and directly shouted. Lung Qing-feng's brows seemed to knit even tighter. This servant will immediately send someone to find a queen. Eunuch Du anxiously wiped his cold sweat and his face was pale. This queen was really too much. When she was still a young girl, it was fine if she was not sensible. Now that she was the queen of Northern Liang, how could she casually leave the palace? If someone were to follow or assassinate her, the consequences would be unthinkable. No need. Lung Qing-feng put down his brush and said, she should have already left the palace. This servant will go and stop her. It's dangerous outside the palace. If Eunuch Du seemed to feel that something was wrong and immediately slapped himself. Pay. This servant will go now. Go now. No one in the entire Northern Liang is her match in terms of martial arts. Lung Qing-feng slightly narrowed his eyes and said, what I am unhappy about is not her leaving the palace, but the people she met after leaving the palace. Rong Mo. He had arrived in Northern Liang with his family. The fate between them was really not shallow. To think that they would meet again in the vast sea of people. Unfortunately, he could no longer see what happened after that. He had no way of knowing what happened after they met and what they said. It was as if a scorching flame was burning in the depths of his heart, tormenting him. So, are we not going to look for Her Majesty? I only said that there's no need to go. Lung Qing-feng stood with his hands behind his back, his deep eyes filled with a faint light as he said, I'll go personally. Since he wanted to bring her back, it would be more sincere if he personally went to pick her up. Back then, he did not hesitate to use her as a bargaining chip and sent her to Northern Liang, a place she had never been to before. He was the one who had let her go, so he would not give her the chance to take her back. In front of Yiyang Building, there was a wave of shouting. Luo Qingchun found a private seat and sat down, sipping tea and eating desserts. Actually, the desserts in Yiyang Building were not that delicious. Compared to the imperial chefs in the palace, there was still a distance. Chapter 33-32. Luo Qingchun placed the pastries in front of the nervous Xiaomi and said, Eat. Don't be so restrained. Empress, cough. Luo Qingchun seriously cleared her throat and corrected her. When we're outside, please call me young master. These days have been too boring. Imagine a harem without fighting. How boring would that be? Of course, she didn't like fighting either. After all, she was a person who only pursued the love of one person in this life, and all the lifetimes after that. It wasn't that she was unreasonable or stubborn, but that was the meaning of the word love. Pung. Fireworks filled the sky, and the stage downstairs began to sing a play. This play was a bit familiar, as if it was the same as what had happened to the previous host in the U country. That luxuriously dressed man seemed to be Rong Mo. The pure girl behind him seemed to be Ying Yunfei, and the girl who was bullied but gave her life for love seemed to be her. While Luo Qingchun was still immersed in the story, Xiaomi, who was sitting in front of her, began to cry. Luo Qingchun quickly covered her mouth and glared at her. What are you crying for? Is it that touching? How is this touching? It's clearly that girl in yellow. She's too pitiful. Woo. They're too cruel. That man doesn't love her at all. He only loves his family and his position in the family. Hearing Xiaomi say this, Luo Qingshun couldn't help laughing coldly in her heart. That's right. The onlooker sees the most clearly. That was how Rong Mo treated the previous host, but the previous host was unable to extricate herself from her dream. Even when she died, she didn't wake up from her dream. Well said, what kind of mess is this acting? It's not good at all. A sharp voice sounded, causing everyone to look in the direction of the voice. Luo Qingshun slightly knit her brows. This voice, why was it so familiar? In the next second, she looked in the direction of the voice. It was indeed very familiar. Ying Yunfei was wearing a bright red, cherry red, flower-sprinkled pleated skirt, with a bat-patterned, fluttering golden biao inlaid with colored glass beads on top of her head. On her feet, she wore a pair of cloud mist rui water rippling phoenix wing satin shoes, giving off an incomparably graceful and luxurious feeling. Miss, we are only acting. If you don't like it, you can choose not to watch. Although Ying Yunfei was a woman, the leader of the troupe was not polite with her words. Today, they were performing in front of Yiyang Tower. This was a once-in-a-year occasion. If someone were to come and say something bad about it, then they must be here to cause trouble. Since I'm acting in front of others in broad daylight, I should be able to withstand the criticism of others. I feel that it's hard to say what's wrong with my acting. Ying Yunfei crossed her arms and said, I've lost the fatigue value of my eyes. It had to be said that Ying Yunfei's words were really harsh, and the head of the troupe was so angry that his face turned red. Rong Mo and the rest were sitting in a tea house on the other side. Now that they had arrived in northern Liang, they originally wanted to settle down and not be overly ostentatious, but they didn't expect Ying Yunfei to be more ostentatious than anyone else. But he seemed to know the reason why she was so ostentatious, because the man's legal wife's actions were exactly the same as hers. That man had no choice but to marry a woman from a prestigious family in order to raise his status in the family, so that he could become the head of the family in the future. But this woman was unruly and willful. Not only was she jealous, she was also ruthless. Chapter 33. What? Since you can't out-talk me, then there's no need to act. Ying Yunfei bit her lips. No one is watching anyways. What a joke. Luo Qingshun opened her fan and looked at Ying Yunfei. If you don't need your eyes, you can donate them to someone else. The Northern Liang people like to watch a play, so we need someone from the U country to comment. At this moment, Ying Yunfei felt her back stiffen, and there was an indescribable fear. Why was that person's voice so familiar? Where was she? Where was she? In the next second, her eyes stopped at the private room on the second floor of Yiyang Building. At the same time, Rong Mo also looked towards Luo Qingshun's direction. Qingshun, Luo Qingshun. Ying Yunfei bit her lips. What a joke. You're talking as if you're not a girl from the U country. I'm sorry. Luo Qingshun waved her fan. I'm not. You clearly. Haven't you heard of the ancient forbidden sect? Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes and looked at her coldly. If you want to say where I'm from, it should be the Northern Liang. It had to be said that the feeling of making Ying Yunfei speechless was really good. She didn't stay in U country for long and didn't even see Ying Yunfei's face. Although the original owner had forgotten her hatred, she always felt that there was a pit in her heart that she couldn't get over no matter what. Now, she had a chance. What does it have to do with me? I just feel that this play isn't good. What can they do to me? Ying Yunfei looked away. What do these people know? They're just ordinary people. Yes. In the next second, Luo Qingshun interrupted her without hesitation. Maybe they are ordinary people, but what's wrong with me? You really don't look like a concubine of a fallen country. Instead, you look more like Hua Hongluo's number one. Luo Qingshun. Oh. Luo Qingshun leisurely sipped her tea and said, maybe she's only in Hua Hongluo, but she's not the top hostess because her appearance is a little different. The surrounding onlookers immediately understood the meaning of Luo Qingshun's words and gradually whispered. So it's someone from the state of Yu. No wonder he's so rude. Concubine? Or was his upbringing? It's normal for a country to fall with this kind of upbringing. Yes. So embarrassing. Ying Yunfei's face turned pale. She had never thought that Luo Qingshun would be so eloquent. She was like a completely different person compared to when she was in Yu Country. She just didn't like this show, because when she watched this show, she had a strong sense of immersion. Just like now, Rongmo's gaze had never left Luo Qingshun the moment she spoke. All along, she knew that the person Rongmo liked the most, and the person he couldn't let go of the most was Luo Qingshun. She just couldn't accept it, so even though she knew that she had left Yu Country, she still wanted to kill her. But she didn't expect that this person was so lucky that she didn't die. Now, she was still able to enjoy the show and drink tea so happily. Was she really living so well in northern Liang? Hee hee. Hee hee. Ying Yunfei took a deep breath and sneered. What's the difference between a concubine of a fallen country and me? If she was a concubine of a fallen country, she was at least a favored concubine. As for Luo Qingshun, she was just an abandoned concubine. This was the most fundamental difference between them. Luo Qingshun supported her chin with her right hand and lightly knocked on the table with her left hand. I actually don't agree with this view, because there should still be some differences between us. Chapter 33-34. Didn't I just say it? The biggest difference between us is Ying Yunfei didn't expect that before she could finish her sentence, she would be interrupted by an unfamiliar man's voice. He was dressed in snow-white robes, and his silver hair was as white as snow. However, this time, he wasn't wearing the silver fox mask. Coming in the snow without a trace of dust, this was probably the Lung Qingfeng at this moment. He had a bewitching face, and his beautiful eyes were slightly narrowed. It was as if he was blowing the horn of death, causing people to be immersed in him for eternity. He first looked at Ying Yunfei with a mysterious smile before his gaze landed on the cross-dressed Luo Qingshun. The biggest difference between you and her is that you came to northern Liang to seek refuge, while she is the queen of northern Liang. At this moment, everyone present sucked in a breath of cold air. The youth in front of them was elegant and graceful, like a white-haired immortal descending from the heavens. His voice was as cold as water, but it carried an unfathomable dignity. What did you say? Ying Yunfei's eyes widened as she looked at the youth in front of her in disbelief. It was probably because the youth's face was too tall that she was dazed by the white snow. After a few seconds, she bit her lip and puffed out her chest. She is only a chess piece sent by Yu Country to northern Liang. Queen? How laughable. I think you've read too much. You're so young, but your hair has already turned white. She's not a chess piece. In the next second, Lung Qingfeng's cold eyes narrowed as his gaze landed on the stage in front of him. The person sitting there wasn't anyone else but Rongmo. Rongmo narrowed his eyes, and there seemed to be an incomprehensible look between the two of them. After a while, Rongmo seemed to have been defeated and unwillingly turned his eyes away. He had been the ruler of Yu Country for so many years. Even if the other party didn't say anything, he could roughly tell what kind of person they were. The other party seemed to be the same. He should be the mysterious king of northern Liang, Lung Qingfeng. Huh, what a joke. Who are you? I know better than you whether or not she's a chess piece. Back then, it was his consort. It was I who personally sent her to the palace. Ying Yunfei had just been angered by Luo Qingshun. Now that there was someone who inexplicably helped her, she found a way to vent her anger. The next second, the corners of Lung Qingfeng's mouth curled into an extremely faint smile. He nodded slightly and looked at Rongmo. I always thought that there was at least a little similarity between us, but now it seems there are still some differences. Luo Qingshun naturally knew the meaning behind Lung Qingfeng's words. She put down her cup and looked at Xiaomi. The king has personally come to pick us up. We should return. This servant's hands are trembling. I haven't come back to my senses yet. Why was the king chasing after them so soon after they left the palace? Was he really a god? How could he be so fast and so powerful? Luo Qingshun shrugged, patted her shoulder gently, and went downstairs. Before she reached Lung Qingfeng's side, he reached out his hand and pulled her firmly to his side. This was a display of his possessiveness. He wanted to tell that man, no matter who she loved deeply in the past, She only belonged to him now. Hey, why are you so uneducated? Ying Yunfei saw that Lung Qingfeng was ignoring her and stomped her feet in anger. I'm talking to you. Did you hear me? End of chapter. Hurry up and read it. Chapter 33-35. Lung Qingfeng still did not respond to her words. Instead, he turned to look at Luo Qingshun and said, "Let's go back to the palace, okay?" Luo Qingshun revealed a faint smile and nodded. Okay. She didn't know why, but although it was late winter, she felt a special warmth in her heart at this moment. You, stop right there. Seeing that they were about to leave, Ying Yunfei unwillingly walked forward and wanted to grab Lung Qingfeng's sleeve. In the next second, he quickly took an arrow from a prop on the stage and pressed it against Ying Yunfei's throat. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Everyone's expression seemed to be very excited. Instead, Lung Qingfeng's sword pierced down as if he was helping the people get rid of evil. You, what do you want to do? Ying Yunfei took a deep breath and staggered back 2 steps. She patted her chest and said, in broad daylight, don't tell me you want to kill me here? Do you know who I am? She felt like her vision had turned black, and she had a feeling that she had just walked through the gates of hell. Why did she feel fear in her heart at that moment? She could only increase the volume of her voice to cover the fear in her heart. I don't kill women. Lung Qingfeng coldly looked at Ying Yunfei. His entire body emitted waves of coldness as he said, but you are an exception. Originally, he didn't know who this person was. But based on her words, because I personally sent her out of the palace, he could guess that the assassins sent by the Dragon Gate Inn and the problematic servant girl were all sent by this woman in front of him. Therefore, his heart didn't want her to live. Even if he sent her to hell in broad daylight, it didn't matter. You don't act recklessly. Is there no law in northern Liang City? Ying Yunfei took 2 steps back and said, if you kill me, you and Luo Qingshun will be buried with me. Then I'll have to disappoint you. Lung Qingfeng's lips curved into an extremely cold smile. I am the law of northern Liang. In the next second, he raised his right hand and quickly launched a fatal attack in Ying Yunfei's direction. Clang! The sound of 2 weapons clashing against each other could be heard. Rong Emo walked over slowly from not far away. He was dressed in a black robe and black boots. His face was as clear as jade, and he looked extremely handsome. He was a good-looking man, but unfortunately, he was not a good man. I apologized to the Lung King on behalf of Yunfei. Rong Emo took a deep breath and cupped his fists. I hope that the king and queen will not stoop to her level. My king, what are you talking about? What king and queen? How could Luo Qingshun be? If you still want to live, I advise you not to say another word. Rong Mo's voice was cold, without any hint of joking. At this moment, Ying Yunfei's face completely stiffened. She glanced at Rong Emo, then at Lung Qingfeng. Finally, her gaze landed on Luo Qingshun. She was dressed like a man and had no makeup on her face, but she attracted the attention of all the men. At this moment, she suddenly recalled the question Rong Emo had asked her back in Yu Country. Do you know who the Queen of Northern Liang is? At that time, her answer was, the King of Northern Liang doesn't have a queen. Ah, what a joke, what a joke. No wonder he asked her that back then. No wonder he agreed to come to Northern Liang. He already knew that Luo Qingshun was the Queen of Northern Liang. He already knew. This chapter ends. Hurry up and read the latest chapters. Chapter 33-36. Why? Why did that woman who was clearly a chess piece have such a smooth journey to Northern Liang? She even became the Queen of Northern Liang? It seems that young Master Rong is very protective of his wife. I am the same. Lung Qingfeng sized up the pale Ying Yunfei and said, I know everything you did at the border of Yu. You must be very curious why you didn't succeed after using so many methods and even using the Shadow Sect. Lung Qingfeng narrowed his eyes and said, because I have always been by her side. The king has indeed left. His ability to predict the future is unparalleled. Rong Emo laughed in self-mockery. I have a question for the king. Young Master Rong, please ask. Lung Qingfeng was very polite, but this politeness was cold, and even had an aura of superiority. This aura, even Luo Qingchun beside him could feel it. This man was probably jealous. If she didn't choose Northern Liang and chose Jade Country, what would you do? Rongmo's tone seemed gentle, but it was actually aggressive. If Leng Qingfeng wasn't the queen of Northern Liang, then Xie could have brought her back from Northern Liang. Even if Yu Country was destroyed, he could have brought her to the ends of the earth. She was originally his wife. If she was still by his side, he would definitely be satisfied and happy. Leng Qingfeng narrowed his eyes and said after a while, no matter where she chose, no matter who she chose, she will still be the queen of Northern Liang. No one can change this outcome. Because, he paused and continued, no one can take her away from me. It would be a lie if he said he wasn't moved by such words in the snow. Rong Mo was stunned on the spot and didn't say anything for a long time. He wanted to laugh and cry at the same time, but the expression on his face did not change at all. Because he knew he couldn't compare to Leng Qingfeng. It wasn't that he couldn't compare to Leng Qingfeng's ability, but his love for her. Impossible. Just as Rong Mo was about to say something, Ying Yunfei shrieked. Her eyes were filled with fear and disbelief. Don't speak. Rong Mo's tone was commanding, but it didn't seem to have any effect on Ying Yunfei. She almost screamed, I want to say it. On what basis? Why can a woman like her become the queen of Northern Liang, and why can't I? I am the general's daughter. The general's daughter. It seems like your wife doesn't want to live. Leng Qingfeng's gaze was as cold as frost as he looked at Rong Mo. Are you protecting her like this because of love? He didn't understand how a single person could have a harem of 3,000 beauties. It was clear that a heart could only hold one person, and it was clear that they could only be together for the rest of their lives. However, the way Rong Mo looked at Luo Qingchun was clearly affectionate, yet he was still protecting Luo Qingchun in every possible way. There were even 2 dignified women following behind him. How could his heart and his emotions be so vast? It's just a responsibility. Rong Mo sneered. But what can I do if she doesn't want it? I understand what young Master Rong means. Leng Qingfeng smiled meaningfully. It's getting late. I'll take my leave first. With that, he held Luo Qingchun's hand and left. In a chapter. Hurry up and read it. Chapter 33-37. After taking 2 steps, Rong Mo laughed at himself. It was as if he was talking to Leng Qingfeng, as if he was talking to Luo Qingchun, and as if he was talking to himself. The person I love the most in my life is no longer by my side, but I still hope that she can be happy. His words were filled with reluctance and helplessness. Leng Qingfeng wanted to stop, but Luo Qingchun had no intention of stopping. You believe the words of this kind of person? Luo Qingchun tilted her head and said, if he were to choose between me and Yu Country again, he would definitely choose the latter. Don't ask me why, because there was once a Heaven's Fate Master who used a heaven-defying ability to change his fate, giving him a chance to choose again. But the result of his choice was still his country. There was no change at all. I've never believed it. Leng Qingfeng gently patted her head and said, because I can't understand how he can have so many concubines and love so many people. A lifetime of mountains and rivers, but only one person. That was probably his personality. After returning to the palace, Luo Qingchun seriously reflected on her actions. I promise that I won't casually leave the palace next time. Even if I really want to leave the palace, I will definitely ask the king. Leng Qingfeng looked at her aggrieved expression and grabbed her wrist with his right hand, pulling her to his side. It was so fast that Luo Qingchun didn't even have time to react before she fell into a warm embrace. King, little did she know that in the next second, Leng Qingfeng kissed her lips without hesitation. With a trace of domineering aura, he wrapped her in layers. This kind of kiss was a little angry, but also a little sweet. Luo Qingchun could even feel that Leng Qingfeng was in a good mood. What was the reason? Could it be because of Rong Mo? Leng Qingfeng, Luo Qingchun felt out of breath from the kiss. She quickly jumped away from him and said, King, if you have something to say, just say it. A gentleman uses his mouth and not his fists, okay? I didn't do anything. You? Luo Qingshun was suddenly at a loss for words. She blinked and said, "The king is obviously in a good mood. Why is he pretending not to be angry? You can tell that I'm in a good mood?" Lung Qingfeng waved his hand and said, "Come here." "I'm not going. Come here. I won't use my hands or my mouth." Luo Qingshun pursed her lips and sat beside him. "I am very happy." Lung Qingfeng held her hand lovingly and said, "Because I didn't see any reluctance in your eyes. It's not that I don't trust him, but because I'm jealous of him." She had done far too many things for him. Not only did she become a chess piece in exchange for him, she even went against the heavens and changed her fate for him, losing the ability that a heaven's fate master should have. "Is that me?" Luo Qingshun rested her chin on her right hand and nodded slightly. She looked at Lung Qingfeng and said, "To put it simply, I came from a very distant place. I'm not the same person as the owner of this body. The king also has different abilities from ordinary people. It should be understandable." Lung Qingfeng was stunned for about 3 seconds before he said, "Really? Then when did you become you and not the original owner?" Luo Qingshun rolled her eyes and said, "That day at the Supreme Court, when Rong Mo asked me to choose between Jade Country and Northern Liang, it was me. So why did you choose Northern Liang?" At this moment, Luo Qingshun felt that Lung Qingfeng's eyes were glowing with warmth. She smiled sweetly and said, "To meet you. And ******* 50 planes. Are you guys ready?" End of chapter. Hurry up and read the latest chapters. Chapter 33-38. Observing the stars, foreseeing the future, seeing through people's hearts. I thought that I knew everything. But this time, I didn't want to gamble on people's hearts or guess the will of the heavens. Love is love. What's there to play hard to get? What's there to control? What's there to be reserved? Confession of the Northern Liang country's ruler. When a person has lived for too long, it can be very boring. It can't be said to be torture, but rather boring. The stars in the sky tell me many things, including the people I will meet, the difficulties I will encounter, and the tribulations I will encounter. I have never felt that it was a tribulation, but I would often dream of it. I only felt an unprecedented joy in my dreams. I have never felt that kind of feeling in the past 100 years. Thus, I decided to personally head to the border of Yu to receive her, but I changed my identity. I always thought that the person who sacrificed her diviner ability for the ruler of Yu country, Rong Mo, was a foolish woman. Yes, foolish. After all, if she wasn't foolish, why would she allow herself to become a hostage after losing her diviner ability and head to Northern Liang? In my opinion, she was foolish for a man. But reality was different from what I imagined. Her eyes were clear, and I couldn't see any worry. She didn't seem to be unhappy at all after leaving Yu country. Instead, she was happy. What surprised me the most was the sword in her hand. Under the scorching sun, the sword seemed to emit a faint red light, making it seem like something that didn't belong to this world, because it could resonate with my green wind sword. At that time, she told me that her sword was called the Phoenix Dance Sword. It was as stunning as her. Actually, I knew that even without my warning, she could easily deal with the first wave of assassins at the Dragon Gate Inn. But for some reason, there was a strange throbbing in my heart at that time. The desire to protect her had become a voice in my heart. If I have something that I definitely want to do, I will never try to test or hide it. This was even more so for her. Those assassins from the Shadow Sect underestimated me too much. Emir Wang Xiao wanted to take her life. He was truly overestimating himself. What was I thinking at that time? Since she chose Northern Liang and chose this place, from that moment on, I had to protect her and stay by her side no matter what. It was a pity that her first impression of Bailiang was not very good. General Bai Jing's daughter, Bai Jiaojiao, bullied the weak. Although there was no change on her face, her eyes flashed with a cold light. That look in her eyes probably indicated that she wanted to kill him. At that time, I was probably thinking, since she wants to kill me, then kill me. It didn't matter if Northern Liang had one less general's daughter. It didn't matter if they had one less general. She immediately saved the mother and son and took care of the aftermath very well. However, Both she and I knew that the woman called by Jiao Jiao wouldn't give up so easily. I thought that since she wanted to enter the palace as an imperial concubine, I might as well give her this opportunity. As for whether she could make good use of it, that was up to her. However, no matter how well she grasps the opportunity, I won't give her any chance. Because the so-called martial arts competition in the martial arts practice field was purely to give her a legitimate opportunity to personally deal with by Jiao Jiao. End of chapter. Chapter 33-39. I didn't care if Bai Jiao Jiao was dead or alive. So what if she died in the arena? What could Bai Jing do? Northern Liang wasn't able to become an invincible country because of me, but it had nothing to do with Bai Jing. Northern Liang was located in the northwest. It was easy to defend and hard to attack. Moreover, I knew when the enemy would attack from which direction. They had no chance at all. So it didn't matter if Bai Jing was there or not. I used him as the great general purely because his father had made great contributions to Northern Liang. It didn't mean that he was important. However, the arena was unpredictable. I didn't think that Bai Jiao Jiao would be so bold as to directly destroy Xuan Ning's face. Her expression changed on the spot. When she went on stage, she was filled with a cold aura. I didn't want her to go because I saw Bai Jiao Jiao trying to use the ancient soul incense in her sleeve to harm her. But I couldn't stop her from being so determined. The next second, I thought, she's a gift from the heavens, so she can do whatever she wants and do whatever she wants. I just needed to stand in a corner and protect her when she was bullied or in danger. Although Lung Qingfeng appeared a bit late, it was just right for me. She won against everyone and rightfully became my queen. Actually, this was a trap set by me. First, I could let her deal with Bai Jiao Jiao. Second, I could let her become my queen. Everything went smoothly, but I didn't expect that on the night before the ceremony, an uninvited guest from the Yu country would come to find her. Xiejiao. He was a swordsman with a bit of fame. I had heard of his name before, but no matter who it was, anyone who came to Northern Liang was an enemy. But she said that she wanted to meet him, but my heart was filled with mixed feelings. My heart was heavy, and I even doubted myself. I had to admit that what I was most afraid of was whether or not she would choose to come back with Xiejiao. After all, after she entered the palace, I investigated a lot of things. Everything she had done for Rong Mo was so touching. Now that he had sent someone to pick her up, would she choose to leave with him? However, the truth made me heave a long sigh of relief. She didn't intend to leave with him. Even the words that came out of her mouth were resolute. He couldn't describe his feelings at that time, but as time passed, he could slowly taste it. Most likely, it was as if a huge rock had been lifted from their hearts, and they felt that their entire world had brightened up. I know she will not leave. I also know she will stay with me forever. And I will cherish you even more. I will not let you down. The coronation ceremony went without a hitch. I held her hand and walked up the stage step by step. We seemed to have only known each other for a short period of time, but when I looked into her eyes at that moment, I felt like I had been dreaming for 3,000 years. It was as if we had known each other for a long time, as if we had been in love for 1,000 years. Her most touching words of love were probably when I asked her if she wanted to save Yugua. The light in her eyes flashed, and she said with a certain tone, "Who cares if he dies?" I knew she didn't love Rong Mo anymore. No matter what happened in the past, at least the person she loves now is me, and it will be the same in the future. End of chapter. Chapter 33-40. The last time she saw Rong Mo was in front of Yang Tower in Northern Liang. She saw him and his concubines at the market. Although I didn't understand Rong Mo, I could feel the ambition and unwillingness in his eyes when we looked at each other. And that faint trace of friendship, I knew who that friendship belonged to. I also knew that he had lost the moment we looked at each other. At that moment, I suddenly understood why he chose Northern Liang. Although he could be cruel to her for Yu country, he wasn't someone who was afraid of death. Why would someone like him choose to abandon his country and go to Northern Liang? The only possibility was that he wanted to find her. However, I still managed to stop him. I always thought that he had good taste. At least we fell in love with the same person. But when I found out that he had another concubine, I completely rejected that idea. My taste was much better than his. That woman, I really didn't know where she got her confidence from. She said that she was the same type of person as Bai Jiao Jiao. She was arrogant and had too much confidence in her beauty. But this Ying Yunfei's words were much sharper. I had to admit that I wanted to kill her on the spot. But Rong Mo stopped me. At that moment, he blocked the distance between the two of us. But maybe that was just the distance between them in my heart. In reality, she had nothing to do with Rong Mo. That was the first time I saw Rong Mo, and also the last time I saw him. The next day, Rong Mo left northern Liang. As for where he went, perhaps no one knew, but I knew a little. He returned to Yu country. As for what happened after, didn't know. But I felt that he probably returned to his palace. Because later on, I heard that the Li Palace of the former Yu Kingdom's imperial palace was suddenly set on fire, burning everything in the palace to ashes. There was also an unknown corpse that was burned beyond recognition by the fire. Although I didn't have absolute certainty, I felt that the corpse should be Rong Mo. Li Palace, Li Palace. That was probably the palace she used to live in. Perhaps he wasn't lying. He really loved her, but his love for her was drowned in too many things. That kind of love wasn't as pure. I don't feel any pity for what happened to him. I just feel that he reaped what he sowed. That was the cause he had planted, so he had to reap the fruits of his actions. Right, that was also the last time I saw Ying Yunfei. Ying Yunfei was different from Rong Mo. She didn't leave northern Liang City. Instead, she bought a huge mansion and recruited many male servants. She was too naive if she wanted to make a name for herself in northern Liang. I didn't know if she didn't understand the conversation between Rong Mo and me, but Rong Mo knew what I would do. Because when all of them moved into the mansion, I sent my secret guards to deal with her and her father and brother. How could I let go of one who spoke to my queen in such a way? Death was already an inevitable outcome. Of course, I didn't tell her about this. She only needed to know that Ying Yunfei wouldn't appear in this world and be an eyesore to her. All the bullying and grievances she had suffered at Ying Yunfei's hands, I will take them all back for her. Finally, I thanked the heavens for giving me this gift. It was like plucking the starry sky that I always looked up at. It was that bright. Ding! Congratulations on bringing a soul fragment into the lead god space. 49/50ths. This chapter ends. Chapter 33:41. I stood at the crossroads of Yu country, Jade country, and northern Liang country. There were paths that led to everywhere, but the path to my heart was very far, so far that my eyes blurred and I couldn't see her figure clearly. Rong Moshe had always been the person I loved the most from birth to death. That had never changed. The first time I saw her was at the edge of the cliff in Qingdang Temple. She was dressed in a pale white robe, and there was a faint light in her eyes. I was a stubborn person. Since it was impossible for me to ascend to the throne in this lifetime, it was meaningless. Some people were more painful to live than to die, such as me at that time. She was like a ray of light that entered my life and gave me salvation. That ray of light was so dazzling. I killed my way through while she followed me. Even in the darkest valley, she never retreated. Even when she was covered in blood, she always shone on my back and never left. But later on, I didn't know how to cherish her. Because of my mistakes in decision-making, my stormy empire was about to come to an end. At that time, she still didn't leave me and used her power as a heaven's fate master to change my fate. As for me, I once again had my empire. At first, I didn't know about these things. I probably only found out much later on and made her suffer a lot. But my stubbornness still made me walk to the end on the day I lost her. By the time I wanted to turn back, it was already too late. That day in the Supreme Court, her cold eyes determined the result of our separation. Actually, if she begged me, I would have agreed to let her stay. But not only did she not, she quickly chose northern Liang and told me that she wanted to leave Yu country as soon as possible. I didn't know why she wanted to leave so quickly. Was it because her heart was dead? But I would bring her back, right? In the end, I didn't expect that would be the last time we talked alone. After that, she no longer belonged to me. Actually, after she left, I regretted it. I sent Xie Jiao to bring her back, but the news I received in the end was like a bolt from the blue. She was about to become Northern Liang's queen. Not a concubine, but a queen. Even I didn't give her this kind of honor. But how long had she been in northern Liang? She actually became his queen. I thought that if I sent someone to bring her back, she would definitely be moved. I thought she wouldn't refuse me. I thought we might still have happy days. But that's just what I think. When the Yu Kingdom was destroyed, I should have left with this country that I was paranoid about, but I thought that maybe I still had a chance. Maybe I could go and pick her up. But when I saw Lung Qingfeng, I knew that there was no longer a chance between us. The way he looked at her was as if he was looking at a treasure. Actually, she was once my treasure, but I lost her later on. In the end, she and I are like strangers. At the end of the story, I still return to that place. When I close my eyes, I could still smell the fragrance of 100 flowers blooming together with her faint smile. The fire burned away everything. All my love, all my hate, all my thoughts, all my obsessions. I knew that she would definitely be happy, definitely happier than when she was with me, because that man loved her and spoiled her. As for me, in this inferno, all I have is a memory that belongs to her. However, those are the most precious memories of my life. Chapter 3342. The story that followed. Ying family's mansion was only purchased for a few days before the assassination happened. Luo Qingxin knew about it the next day. She asked Lung Qingfeng if he was the one who did it. Lung Qingfeng firmly denied it and said that in this world, good will be rewarded with good and evil will be punished with evil. Ying Yunfei's family ended up like this because it was the right time. Luo Qingxin said, "A man's mouth is a liar." This made her think of Bai Jiaojiao. She always thought that this woman named Bai Jiaojiao would appear again. At least she would do something and play some tricks. After all, after the ancient spirit incense was released, she became the queen of northern Liang and had a meteoric rise. Bai Jiaojiao should be unreconciled. But until Ying Yunfei died, Luo Qingxun suddenly thought of Bai Jiaojiao. She looked for Xiaomi to investigate a little and found out that Bai Jiaojiao had a strange disease. Her whole body was covered with red spots, and she would itch every day. Bai Jing looked for countless doctors, from the imperial doctors to the Jianghu magicians, but no one could cure Bai Jiaojiao's disease. It was said that she lived in pain every day and didn't eat or sleep well. Luo Qingxan thought for a moment. Bai Jiaojiao should have been poisoned by a strange poison from the ancient forbidden sect called Shadow Spirit Incense. In short, it was more torturous than the ancient spirit incense. When she went down the mountain, her master gave the original owner a small brocade bag which contained this thing. But she didn't know when that brocade bag disappeared. Luo Qingxun thought that it must have been stolen and it must be done by Lung Qingfeng. After the assassination, Luo Qingxun once again asked Lung Qingfeng about Bai Jiaojiao's poisoning. Lung Qingfeng looked at her innocently and said, "Why do you blame everything on me? It really wasn't you? It really wasn't. Then who stole my brocade bag? How would I know?" The next day, after the two people talked, Bai Jiaojiao died of illness. Bai Jing, on the other hand, felt his entire body relax because he knew that this was a form of relief for his daughter. She was in too much pain. Similarly, on the second day, Lung Qingfeng gave him a gift, which could only be opened after he went to court. After Luo Qingxin opened it, she found a brand new brocade pouch inside. It was a pink brocade pouch. Inside the brocade pouch was a line of beautiful words. "Isn't it just a brocade pouch? I'll give you a new one. Don't yell at me anymore, okay?" When she left this world, Luo Qingxun could still remember her smile when she closed her eyes. In this life, the sweetness had seeped into his bones. What about the next life? The following is a summary of the data for this mission. Please read it carefully. Name, Luo Qingxun Space, love of Northern Liang City. The Cold King's favorite concubine, mission completion rate, 100% EXP. For 1,000/10,000 currently, there are 5 items in the portable space. 4/5 exquisite ring, 9-section moon whip, phoenix dance sword, universal medicine box. Permanent ability. Space-time freeze level 6 permanent ability. Teleport level 5 permanent ability. Telekinesis level 2 exchange points. 5,000 base points. 40. The host's 50th mission panel is below. Appearance. 90 of 100 strength, 90 of 100 intelligence, 90 of 100 figure, 90 of 100 after that. The image in the bronze mirror changed. Mission grade, SS experience gained, 500 female lead, Luo Qingchen male lead, Du Jiu Sheng supporting female lead. You can supporting male lead, Sumu mission content. Return a half a year before the previous host died and obtain the love of the male lead. Chapter 3343. This was a very special story. This was the 50th world, so some things were a bit more difficult. Because the previous host, Big Brother Jiu Sheng, and the other male and female characters didn't have any direct contact. So even when she died, she didn't even know who forced her onto this path. Perhaps it wasn't just her, rather it was them. A city was the largest business city in the world. It was divided into 3 parts, and there were 3 giant families. The Du family, the Yu family, and if you think it was the previous host family, then you are completely wrong. Other than the Du Yu and Yu families, there was also the Su family. The Du Yu and Su families were the 3 giants of a city. The city center was filled with hundreds of tall buildings, and even if it was a city of gold, it was the dream place of all young people. Although the previous host also lived in a city, it was around an hour's drive from the city center. It wasn't close, but it wasn't far either. It was a place called the Star River Resort. This resort was very special. As long as one sat on the Ferris wheel and looked into the sky, they could see the sea and the sky. Moreover, the blue waves of the sea would shine like stars. The resort had around 100 people, which wasn't considered many. The previous host's best friend, Yi Ran, was the son of the resort's owner. The Star River Resort had existed for over 100 years. Although there weren't many people who came to visit, the villagers didn't rely on the resort's income to live. Therefore, even if the amusement park was old, it didn't matter to them that it was covered in dust. The previous host was the resort's feng shui diviner. Of course, when it reached the previous host generation, there was only the title of feng shui diviner left. The word diviner no longer existed. The previous host's family lived in a very large altar. It was said that the previous host's grandfather was a very powerful wizard. With just a light tap of his finger, who knew if it was a blessing or a curse? Although the country was very backward at that time, the villagers of Star River Village never suffered from famine. Even in the city center of City A, there were many people who begged for food, but they always had rice to cook. The reason was that the previous host's grandfather was a very powerful diviner, but this kind of talent didn't seem as strong in the generation of the previous host's grandfather. Until the previous host's father, he didn't have this ability. As for the previous host, if the original owner had this ability, would she still need this host? 10 years ago, people from Xinghe village had wanted to buy this place. The village chief, Yi Ku, had also asked for everyone's opinion. Although the opinions were not completely unanimous, most people were still unwilling to leave this place where they had lived their whole lives. Therefore, in the past 10 years, many merchants, big and small, had come to Star River Village to negotiate. However, none of them had succeeded in taking over the village. Originally, Xinghe village could last for 100 years, but 6 months before the death of the original owner, something happened. Moreover, it was one unforeseen event after another. The Astronomical Bureau announced that in 6 months, there would be a meteor shower that was hard to come by in 10,000 years. The collision of meteorites would produce the brightest meteors across the night sky. The best place to observe was Star River Village. Because it was a rare scene, it attracted the attention of the whole world. This originally inconspicuous village suddenly became a hot commodity in the eyes of all the big shots in the business circle. Chapter 3344. The village chief, Yi Ku, had 2 sons. One was Yi Ran, the childhood sweetheart of the original host, and the other was Yi Ho, who was ignorant, sloppy, and had a bad character. Yi Ran and Yi Ho had very different personalities. Although the original host and Yi Ran were good friends, Yi Ho was a stranger to the original host. Yi Ho, who looked so ordinary, was the key to the destruction of Xinghe village. In fact, the real key was not Yi Ho, but the person who set the trap for Yi Ho. Su Mu, who had the title of elegant prince in the business circle, was a very powerful person. When a Ministry of Culture announced that the rare meteor shower in half a year would fall on Xinghe village, the three big families of a city sent lawyers and negotiators to Xinghe village to negotiate with the village chief, Yiku. The price they offered was almost an astronomical figure. Yiku was not unmoved. After all, it was a figure of hundreds of millions. If he was not satisfied, he could continue to negotiate. However, most of the villagers felt that this was an opportunity given by God to Xinghe village. Their ancestors had lived here for hundreds of years. Now, they had to sell it to their generation. It was very unreasonable. More than 90% of the people did not agree. Then, it was the same as before. There was no room for negotiation. After Sumu knew that the three big families were all rejected, he began to deal with the matter personally. In less than half a day, he put the breakthrough of this matter on the village chief, Sumu's youngest son, Suho. He was ignorant, incompetent, and loved to gamble. He especially liked to go to nightclubs to find women. Unfortunately, people without money did not even have a chance to have a one-night stand. At this time, Sumu threw an olive branch to the man who had been enduring for a long time. Half of the success was achieved. Sumu recruited Yiho in the name of needing a driver. Not only did he take him to the biggest nightclub in a city, but he also took him to Las Vegas to gamble. He only needed a glance to see through Yiho's character. Once there was a third color, Tendai houses could be opened. Yiho did not experience this, but he was the kind of person who liked to show off. Sumu told him that he thought he was a talent, but he cherished talent so much. Therefore, not long after they met, Sumu made Empress his confidant. He gave him a car and enough power to use his money. At first, Yiho was careful and only took a few $1,000s to gamble at the casino. Once he lost, he would bow down to apologize to Sumu and promise that he would never use public funds to gamble again. Sumu waved his hand and said, "It doesn't matter. Since I trust you, you can spend my money however you want." When Yiho heard this, she was so touched that her eyes turned red. "President Su, you really treat me better than my brother. I've said that I appreciate useful people, and I'll put them in important positions." However, Empress Yi would never know that the useful person she was referring to was someone who could help her obtain Galaxy Village. Never give a gambler the so-called authority, because once he tested the bottom line, he would start to gamble unscrupulously. He had bet a total of 100 million on this gamble. After losing once, he wanted to gamble again and win back his capital and interest. However, it was only when he lost 100 million that he realized that he was finished. Chapter 33:45. Yiho still had a trace of hope that Sumu would save him. But the truth was that Sumu had sincerely said to him, "I really trusted you, so I brought you to meet all those important people. It doesn't matter if you spend a bit of money on gambling, and I don't care, but you really failed to live up to my trust in you for 100 million. Yiho was filled with regret, but it was impossible for him to pay back this money. Other than begging Sumu, he had no other choice. Sumu didn't see him again and didn't answer his calls, but he had his assistant contact Yiho. He didn't need to make a move or threaten others. Letting others willingly give him what he wanted was Sumu's style. Sumu's assistant told Yiho that it wasn't impossible to repay the 100 million yuan. Recently, President Su had been troubled by the acquisition of a village. If he could do it well, perhaps President Su would help him pay the 100 million yuan. When Yiho learned the name of the village, he immediately volunteered. "I have a way to take down Xinghe village." Yiho was already dissatisfied that his father wasn't willing to sell Xinghe village. This was a profit of over 10 billion. Everyone in the village could live in a large house. So why didn't they agree and chose to live in this remote village? He had already objected to this matter, but he was too lazy to interfere before because he felt it was troublesome. But now that he was in deep water, he had to find a way to help Sumu, otherwise he really would go to jail. Yiho took advantage of Yiku's absence to find a way to get the key to the safe and take out the deed to Xinghe village. He gave the deed to Sumu without any hesitation. Moreover, he signed his name on the sale agreement. The rest of the story was much simpler. The entire Xinghe village fell into a panic of being bought. Village head Yiku felt sorry for the villagers and personally went to beg Sumu, but he was kicked out without even seeing Su Mu's face. Xingyi village was now legally owned by the Su family. Although the method used wasn't glorious, it still had legal significance. The three families restrained each other. The Du families Du, Jiusheng, and the Yu families Yukinkan naturally didn't want Su Mu to easily take down Xingyi village. After all, once Xingyi village was turned into a business center or the CBD of a city, it would be a 100 billion investment. Whoever got the Xingyi village would not only become the leader of the three big families in a city, but also earn a lot of money. At that time, Star River Village was like a piece of Rujiamo, sandwiched between the three forces and unable to move. The original owner and Yi Ran kept thinking of ways to take back Xingyi village. There were a lot of legal benefits to this, but in the end, they were defeated by their own people. When the real gold and silver arrived in the hands of the villagers, they were shaken. The one who gave the money was no one else but Du Jiusheng. Although Su Mu had obtained the deed, the person who signed the deed transfer agreement was not the village chief himself, but his son. Therefore, there was a certain flaw in the agreement. It was very important to win people's hearts at this time. Du Jiusheng was different from Su Mu. Su Mu fought head-on, and Du Jiusheng just asked a single question. You think that your protection is good for Star River Village, but do you know why your amusement park is always old and backward? This is because it is impossible for Xingyi Village to become an amusement park village with hot springs. Why? Chapter 3346. This was the only sentence Du Jiusheng had said in this story, and he didn't say it himself. Rather, it was relayed to him by his assistant. The previous host had never seen Du Jiusheng of this world, and the reason was very melodramatic. It was because she had been in a car accident on the way to see Du Jiusheng and had died on the spot. This time, the previous host's obsession wasn't because of love. Rather, it was because of her grandfather's request and her feelings for Xingyi village. She didn't want this place to become a skyscraper, and she didn't want it to become a CDB city center. She just wanted this place to be a resort with an old pirate ship, an old Ferris wheel, and an old merry-go-round. But at least it had a beautiful scenery that other places didn't have. That was the galaxy that belonged to them. The previous host's story didn't end here. Although she had died, it didn't change the ending of Xingyi village. Xingyi village was taken by Du Jiusheng in the end, and an incomparably prosperous business district was built. The village head Yiku deeply felt that he had let down the villagers of Xingyi village, so he jumped off the skyscraper to his death. Although the Su group's Su Mu was unwilling, he had to admit that Du Jiusheng was his only worthy opponent. Accurately speaking, he was a hateful opponent because the woman he admired the most, Yukinkan, liked no one else but Du Jiusheng. Why was it admiration and not love? It was because in Su Mu's world, the word admiration had already reached its limit. He felt that he couldn't fall in love with anyone. That meteor shower was very big. Xingyi village was still Xingyi village at that time, but there were no old skyscrapers and no villagers guarding the village. That piece of land was filled with tall buildings and tens of thousands of shopping malls, becoming a business center where people came and went. The previous host brought her obsession to the bronze mirror in the chaos space, so the host, Luo Qingshan, appeared. The story returned to half a year ago when Empress Yi hadn't sold the deed to Su Mu. Xingyi village was the same as before, filled with a warm atmosphere. Luo Qingshan sat in the temple and rubbed her temples, feeling a bit anxious. This story was complicated and simple at the same time. But why did she feel a bit panicked? Could it be that big brother Jiusheng had a phobia of the world? The past was vivid in his mind, and everything was as clear as yesterday. Those worlds where Du Jiusheng had held her hand. When she closed her eyes, those scenes clearly flashed in front of her eyes. I'm back, big brother Jiusheng. Luo Qingshan looked up slightly and leaned against the talismans floating on the altar as she muttered to herself. As soon as she finished speaking, she seemed to have understood something. Her anxiety was not because of how to save the Galaxy Village, nor was it because of how to activate her divination ability. The most important reason was that this world had Du Jiusheng. Even if she kept telling herself not to panic and not to be afraid, The ending of some stories was not something she could change just because she wanted to. As a host who helped the master fulfill the wishes of others, sometimes she was more helpless than anyone else. She thought that even if they couldn't grow old together, she could at least spend that short period of time with him. And the most important thing was that, if possible, she wanted to see Nian again. Even if it was for a short period of time, it would be fine. At least the family of 3 would be complete once. But she knew that it was more difficult than ascending to the heavens. Qingchun. Qingchun, who? Who was calling her name? Luo Qingchun was a bit surprised. When she came back to her senses, there was already a familiar and unfamiliar youth standing in front of her. Hurry up and read it. Chapter 33:47. The reason why she was familiar was because this was the previous host's childhood friend, and the reason why she was unfamiliar was because this was her first time seeing this youth. Because it wasn't Du Jiusheng or a fragment of Du Jiusheng's soul. No matter how familiar she was with the previous host, she would still be surprised before coming back to her senses. She immediately blinked and said, "You're Yi Ran." Yi Ran revealed a speechless expression. He raised his right hand to touch her forehead and said, "Do you have a fever? You don't even know who I am?" Yi Ran was born with a height of 1.8 meters. He had a chiseled face and a pair of heroic eyes. He was very handsome. In the past, he was very popular with the girls in school. So the previous host, who was a childhood friend, often received love letters from girls, and it wasn't as simple as 1 or 2. From kindergarten to university, if there weren't 30, there were at least 20. Therefore, in the heart of village head Yi Ku, his eldest son Yi Ran was more successful than his youngest son Yi Ho. Actually, this wasn't a good thing for Yi Ho, because once there was a comparison, it was easy for his heart to be hurt, and he would give up on himself over time. She would either become a taciturn person, or she would become like Empress Yi, ignorant and sloppy all day long. To be honest, it wasn't that she was speaking up for Yi Ho. Although he was sloppy, at least he didn't do anything bad. Occasionally, there would be a few wild dogs that would scare a little girl, and he would throw stones to chase them away. However, stealing land deeds and selling villages was a mistake, and it was a very serious mistake. But nothing had happened yet, and she wouldn't let this serious mistake happen again. No, nothing. Luo Qingchun thought for a bit before looking at Yi Ran and saying, "Why haven't I seen Yi Ho recently? What has he been busy with?" "Him. What else could he be busy with?" Yi Ran gave a helpless shrug and said, "If he's not at the internet cafe, he's at the electronics store. He even said that someone wanted to give him a job yesterday." "Yesterday?" Luo Qingchun was a bit surprised. "Are you certain?" "Yes." Yi Ran nodded and said, "He even borrowed a suit from me. But I think he must have taken a fancy to the girl in the nightclub and went to show off." Luo Qingchun frowned and fell into silence. She did not come to this plane at the right time. Su Mu had already come to look for Yi Ho, but there was still some time before he induced Yi Ho to make a huge mistake. What to do? What should she do to protect the original owners, Xinghe village? Yi Ran saw that Luo Qingchun didn't say anything, so she raised her hand and waved it in front of her. "What's wrong? Did something happen? Why are you suddenly so quiet?" In the next second, Luo Qingchun's eyes were fixed on the yellow bar swaying in the wind. This was a yellow slip left behind by the grandfather of the original owner's grandfather. It was said that as long as one wrote something difficult on the yellow slip, tied it to the wizard bell, and shook the bell gently, everything could be divined. Luo Qingchun raised her eyes and looked at Yi Ran with a troubled expression. "There's something I don't know if I should say." Yi Ran was speechless again. "What's wrong with you today? Is there something between us that you can't say? Are you an idiot?" Childhood sweethearts would always have some words and words that they wouldn't say to others. Although it sounded like scolding words, it sounded very warm. Hurry up and read it. Chapter 33:48. In the next second, Luo Qingchun pretended to raise her right hand mysteriously. She tapped her fingers and said, "I think I suddenly have the ability of a fortune teller." Although it was not the ability of a fortune teller, but because she knew what would happen in the future, she suddenly felt that it was a good idea. The grandfather of the original owner's grandfather had always been the faith of Xinghe village. It was because of him that Xinghe village could go so smoothly today. When the original owner was born, Her grandfather told her that her grandfather's grandfather once said that if her father gave birth to a daughter, then the original owner would be the second feng shui fortune teller. Yes, not just a feng shui fortune teller, but a feng shui fortune teller. What? Yi Ran's eyes revealed a look of surprise and said, Really? Yes. Luo Qingchen nodded and said, That's why I mentioned Yi Ho. I just divined that his current situation is very bad. In other words, it's very bad. Oh my God. Qingchen, wait. I haven't completely reacted yet. Yi Ran scratched his head and said, Do you mean that Yi Ho is going to encounter something bad? It's not just something bad. Luo Qingchen showed a bitter expression and said, It's a matter of life and death. Although it sounded very scary, she was telling the truth. Secondly, she wanted to use this matter to make the village chief Yi Ku and the older generation in the village absolutely believe that she had awakened the ability of a feng shui fortune teller. I'm looking for my father now. Yi Ran immediately said, Your ability came so suddenly. I didn't even have time to react. His childhood sweetheart, who had been following him all this time and didn't even know much about feng shui, suddenly became a fortune teller. The difference in status was so big that he couldn't react for a while. However, looking at her appearance, he knew that she was definitely not joking. Therefore, he immediately went home to look for Yi Ho. When he found that Yi Ho was not home, he directly called him. He called 5 times in a row, but Yi Ho did not answer. Then, Yi Ran hurriedly told his father, Yi Ku, about this matter. Everyone in Xinghe village knew that Luo Qingchen had successfully been promoted from a feng shui master to a feng shui diviner. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Luo Qingchen was still sitting on the altar in her house. However, the representatives of the older generation of Star River Village had already filled the seats around her. Other than the village chief and her grandfather, there were a total of 18 people. You said you have the ability of a fortune teller? Yi Ku looked at her and said, And you divined about Empress Yi? Yes. Luo Qingchen nodded and said, If my divination is correct, he should be in the VIP presidential room of Chaoga, the center of the biggest nightclub in A. Hiss! At this moment, everyone present sucked in a breath of cold air, and in the next second, a lively discussion entered her ears. Yi Ho is indeed ignorant and incompetent, but why would he go to a nightclub? Aunt Lee, you're wrong. I've seen Yi Ho walk into a nightclub. Although it's a small nightclub in a remote village, the questions you're discussing are all very low level. Shouldn't we be concerned about why Yi Ho is kneeling in the VIP presidential room of Chaoga? Although the gossip of the crowd was very gossipy, Luo Qingchen really wanted to give a round of applause to the final person. After all, she was one of the few people who understood the main point of her words. Hurry up and read it. Chapter 3349. Because of this, he found a new job. Luo Qingchen rested her chin on her left and right hand tapped on the table. The person who gave him this job is the person who pushed him to hell. What did you say? Yi Ku asked again in disbelief. Qingchen girl, are you sure you divined about Yi Ho? Yi Ho and I don't usually communicate. If it wasn't divined, how would I know? Luo Qingchen had a calm expression on her face. If there is, then there is. If there isn't, then there isn't. I won't lie to you, and I can't lie to you. The ability of divining wasn't something that could be easily obtained. Although everyone was shocked, they didn't doubt her. The main thing is that we can't get through to Yi Ho's phone. Where should we go to find him? Yi Ku's expression was very thoughtful. After all, he knew his son very well. Yi Ho would definitely do something like this. Qingchen said her brother is at Zhaogan nightclub. Yi Ku immediately announced, We'll go find him now and see what's going on with him. Luo Qingchen's lips curled up. She didn't say much and just waited for Yi Ho to be brought back. An hour later, Yi Ran and village chief Yi Ku found Yi Ho at Zhaogan nightclub. He didn't want to come back, but after all, his father personally went to the nightclub to find him. No matter how rebellious he was, he couldn't refuse to come back. However, after hearing that Luo Qingchen had the ability of divining, he felt that it was quite funny. When he arrived at the altar, he had an aggressive look and his eyes were glowing red. Luo Qingchen, I heard that you told my brother and father that the benefactor I met is here to harm me. Yiho's palm slammed on the table. You're joking, right? I finally have a chance to stand out, and you're here to harm me, right? Can't you see that I'm doing well? Yiho kept talking. Even if the village chief yelled at him seriously, he couldn't hear a thing. He only had Luo Qingshan in his eyes, because he felt that this person cut off his future and his most important source of income. Stand out? Luo Qingshan's expression was as calm as ever. The corners of her mouth curled into an extremely faint smile as she said, You mean Su Mu? In the next second, a look of disbelief appeared on Yiho's face. How did you know? If I didn't know, would I have asked the village head to call you back? Luo Qingshan sneered. Do you really think that divination is just for show? These are all things that offend the gods. Suddenly, a gust of cold wind blew in from outside the door. The yellow strip hanging on the top of the altar fluttered in the wind. At this moment, everyone present, regardless of gender or age, sucked in a cold breath. Star River Village valued the gods the most. Therefore, they respected Luo Qingshan's family very much. Even though they had lost their ability as diviners, they still received the respect they deserved. Yiran swallowed his saliva and said, Qingshan, who is that Su Mu? You may not know Su Mu, but you should know a man who often comes to our village and likes to wear green sportswear. Luo Qingshan casually played with the divination stone on the table and said, That person is Su Mu's assistant. Yiran frowned and said, You mean he's from the business circle? To be precise, he should be. Luo Qingshan thought for a while and said, One of the 3 giants of a city, the Su group. Hurry up and read it. Chapter 3350. Luo Qingshan told everyone what happened next, and Yiho was very surprised. He didn't want to believe it, but he had to. Because the matter between him and Su Mu, Luo Qingshan was very accurate. There was no difference at all. Therefore, not only was Yiho grounded by village head Yi Ku, he also changed the key to the safe. Su Mu's matter had come to an end, but this was only the beginning and not the end. Because in the previous host's world, although Su Mu had obtained the deed to Yiho's Xinghe village, he wasn't the one who obtained the rights to Xinghe village. It was Du Jiusheng. Luo Qingshan wanted everyone to believe her, because she wanted to prepare for the future. Su Mu was a hard person to deal with, but if Du Jiusheng stood on the opposite side, he would be harder to deal with than Su Mu. Protecting Xinghe village was the previous host's wish and something she had to do. As for Du Jiusheng, she had to see him first no matter what. At the same time, at the Su family group. Young master, we can't contact Yiho anymore. Assistant Zhuang said, It's very strange. He was clearly very excited, but after leaving Zhaoge, we couldn't contact him anymore. Su Mu shook the wine glass in his hand. What is strange about this? Wouldn't we know the reason if we analyzed it logically? Logically analyzed? De Zhuang scratched his head. This young master is stupid. I can't analyze it. Su Mu leaned against him with an elegant smile. God really is fair. Normal people with big bodies don't have high intelligence. So, why do we suddenly lose contact with that person? Could it be that he noticed? After following me for so long, you made a bit of progress. Su Mu gave a shrug. Although you guessed wrong. According to his behavior in Chaoga tonight, he doesn't look like someone who would notice. Su Mu raised his eyebrows slightly. Someone must have noticed. De Zhuang was surprised when he heard this. Who? Who is smart enough to notice the young master's plan? As for who that person is, I also want to know. Su Mu narrowed his eyes as a mysterious glow appeared in his blue eyes, making it hard for people to see through him. The next morning, Du Jiusheng received the news. Assistant Daji asked from the side, Boss, it seems that young Master Su has encountered a bottleneck. Why don't we take this opportunity to enter? Him encountering a bottleneck means that this matter isn't easy to take advantage of. Du Jiusheng had a sparkle in his eyes as he said, Do you know the reason? It seems like the person he was trying to connect to suddenly can't be contacted. Du Jiusheng's lips curled into a faint smile. It seems like there's someone in Xinghe village who can make Su Mu feel uncomfortable. Boss, you mean arrange the itinerary. I will personally go to Star River Village. Okay, boss. Beep, 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 beep. The next second, the phone on the company's desk rang. Du Jiusheng picked it up, and there was a voice from the front desk. Director Du, you group's young Miss You Can is here. Du Jiusheng softly replied. Let her come in. Not only was Yu Can the daughter of a wealthy family, she was also a true beauty. She had a good relationship with Du Jiusheng and Su Mu, but she treated Du Jiusheng more specially than other men. He was a man who would never be affected by any woman's charms. This chapter ends. Chapter 33:51. Long time no see. Director Du, how have you been? Yukin said this as soon as she came in. Du Jiusheng raised a brow. Not long. It's only been 3 days. So you remember this well. Yukin gave a soft laugh. Is it because Director Du cares about me? I think that you and I both know that it's just that your memory isn't bad. It shouldn't be related to whether you care about me or not. Du Jiusheng narrowed his eyes. Young miss, you shouldn't have come looking for me just because you haven't seen me in a long time, right? I like talking to smart people. Yukin had a sweet smile as she said, Su Mu found a breakthrough in Xinghe village, but it failed yesterday. You know that, right? Du Jiusheng softly said, it seems like Director Yu also cares about Xinghe village. Of course. Yukin pursed her lips and said, in a city's business circle, there are 3 pillars. My dad wants to stabilize his position, so he definitely wants to land in Xinghe village. Unhumph, that's reasonable. Du Jiusheng looked at Yukin. So if Director Yu obtains the land in Xinghe village, what do you want to do with it? Of course. Yukin said with a smile. Of course it's to build a business circle. I've investigated it, and that place is indeed suitable for building a business circle. It's not suitable for building a resort at all, and it's such a backward resort. Yukin clearly didn't understand the thoughts of the villagers in this backward village. They could clearly get a large amount of compensation, but they had to stay in the village. It really was hard to understand. That's right. Du Jiusheng gave a shrug. So, young Miss Yukin came to find me for the matter of Xinghe village. Jiusheng, if we can build a business circle together, whether it is money, status, or status, they're all benefits. Yukin had a faint sparkle in her eyes. Can I invite you to cooperate with the Yu family? After a while, there was a cold look in Du Jiusheng's eyes as he said with a polite smile, I think that Director you should know that I never cooperate with anyone. Yukin was a smart person. She naturally knew that although Du Jiusheng looked very polite on the surface, he was actually very cold. This coldness caused Yukin's words to be stuck in his throat, unable to speak. Her father had told her before coming here that Du Jiusheng wouldn't cooperate with anyone, no matter what the conditions were. There was no one or anything in this world that could restrain him. He was a man who only cared about himself. No one could enter his world. Not to mention the pink zone, even the so-called black zone was not qualified to set foot in. Thank you for your kindness, Chief Yu. Du Jiusheng said, I prefer to decide everything by myself. I feel that cooperation is troublesome. I understand Director Du's meaning. Yukin revealed an awkward smile. Then we'll be opponents next. Actually, she wanted to use the words Jiusheng to close the distance between them, but she quickly found that some distance couldn't be closed with just a name. Du Jiusheng. Du Jiusheng. Just who could enter your life? She really was curious into this chapter. Chapter 33:52. It's fine. Du Jiusheng said to his assistant Ji, with a polite smile, drive young Miss Yu back. No need. I'll do it myself, of course. Du Jiusheng said in a gentlemanly voice, if there's a chance in the future, I can cooperate with your father. I still want to buy Star River Village myself. In the future, Yukin said with a helpless smile, Director Du, why are you so polite? Whether it is in the future or not, Director Du won't cooperate with anyone, right? Why like a little girl like me? Hee. Du Jiusheng gave a helpless shrug and said with a faint smile, first, young Miss Yu is no longer a little girl. Second, there are many variables in the future. If I change one day, I might not even know. He had always believed that this was the case. His desire to acquire the Star River Village was entirely because he wanted to quietly watch a meteor shower. Not to mention that Yukin was right. Star River Village wasn't suitable to be a resort because there had to be a water source for a resort, which included swimming and hot springs. But Star River Village's terrain didn't allow it to become what it imagined. Unless unless there was a genius who could design a perfect blueprint that could solve all these problems. You're good. Now you can turn it on automatically. Du Jiusheng looked at the screen and said, turn it on again and load the latest program. Master, am I wrong? Pika, I feel that you should set up an anti-interference system. Don't randomly turn it on. Pika was a robot created by Du Jiusheng. It was the top robot in the world. Basically, all the problems with computing could be solved by Pika. Of course, the only thing this didn't include were emotional problems. The pickup truck was an autonomous robot. Other than Du Jiusheng, no one could control it or talk to it. First, I don't think that there is anyone in this world who can draw a perfect blueprint that can solve all these problems. Second, you need to send the address of Star River Village to my phone. I want to personally go there. I feel that Master can design a perfect blueprint like that. Du Jiusheng looked at the screen with sharp eyes and said, do you want to be turned off? Sorry, Master. The address of Star River Village has been sent to Master's phone. Does Master want to go alone? Why didn't Master wait for the big machine? Isn't Master afraid of danger if he goes alone? Master, you can bring me along. Du Jiusheng pressed the black button on the screen without any hesitation and turned off the pickup truck system. Pika 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 pika. Don't turn me off. After that, the screen on the wall turned off. Du Jiusheng changed into casual clothes and headed to Star River Village alone. Perhaps he would never know that it would be a long time before he left his office and came back again. Since the car was being driven by Deji to send Yukin off, Du Jiusheng chose to take a taxi to Star River Village. Since it was rush hour, he had to wait for half an hour before he could get a taxi. When he got in the car, Du Jiusheng smelled a faint smell of alcohol. The next second, he frowned and said, drunk driving? No. This is the smell left behind by the previous customer. Why would I drink in broad daylight? End of chapter. Chapter 3353. Because he had been waiting for a long time, there was a bit of hesitation in his mind. He knew that the smell of alcohol in the car definitely didn't come from the previous customer. But as someone who cared about efficiency, he really didn't want to waste time waiting for a car. Based on the smell of alcohol in the car, although the driver had been drinking, he didn't drink that much. Xinghe Village. Du Jiusheng slightly knit his brows. You don't need to drive fast. It's Xinghe Village again. Since the news reported that there would be a once-in-10,000-year meteor shower in Xinghe Village, there have been many people going there. Many people are paying attention. Yes. The driver felt the pressure from the other side's words of drunk driving, so he immediately said, but the road wasn't easy to drive on that day. It was close to a cliff, so it wasn't easy for a novice driver to drive on. Du Jiusheng felt that the other side wanted to talk to him, so he didn't say anything and looked out the window. City, it was indeed a bustling city. Skyscrapers rose from the ground, and there were countless business districts. There were people coming and going on the streets. Perhaps there were times when he felt that this city was too noisy and it was hard for a person to calm down. The car kept moving forward, and when they were about to reach Xinghe Village, on the 18th turn, something happened. Meow. A cat suddenly charged out. The driver couldn't see if it was a human or a cat in the dark, but he wildly turned the steering wheel. Pung! Before Du Jiusheng could react, the car had already hit the guardrail and fell off the cliff. At the same time, in Xinghe Village. After the matter with Yiho, the villagers all trusted Luo Qingshan and gave her the title of Feng Shui Diviner. Luo Qingshan felt like there was a heavy crown on her head, but it was impossible to take it off. Even Aunt Wang next door had lost her daughter and came to her for help. Of course, she couldn't find her. She wanted to ask for the system's help, but she suddenly remembered that she didn't have a system in this world. Moreover, she didn't have any powers to use. At this moment, she suddenly thought of the special plane, and a chill ran down her spine. Qingshan, help me find Xin's location. Aunt Wang looked at her anxiously and said, she hasn't come home since she went out in the afternoon. But Auntie Wang, I think we should go to the police and not. In the next second, before she could finish her sentence, a strange scene flashed before her eyes. In a dense forest, there was a little girl in a yellow dress walking around. Is Xin wearing yellow dress and holding a windmill in her hand? Yes. The next second, Aunt Wang looked at Luo Qingshan with a surprised expression. Did you see her? Luo Qingshan expressed that she was also very surprised, but when she played with the spirit stone in her hand, this scene would naturally appear in front of her eyes. Could it be that she really had the ability of a fortune teller and could use divination to see places that ordinary people couldn't? She should be in the sea of flowers. Luo Qingshan knit her brows and said, It's too dark, I can't see clearly. Bring a flashlight and we'll go. If I'm not wrong, Xian isn't in danger, you can be assured. It's even later. There's Nian and in this world. End of chapter. Chapter 3354. Half an hour later, Luo Qingshan brought Annie Wang to the Sea of Flowers. The Sea of Flowers was called a Sea of Flowers because it was actually a scenic spot in Xinghe Village. It was a low-lying area where all kinds of flowers and plants were planted. When looking down from above, the uneven terrain would form a very special scenery. It was a beautiful place with hundreds of flowers blooming and the stars reflected in the sky. It was an excellent scenic spot. However, because of the soil problem and the density of the hot springs in Xinghe Village, there weren't any hot springs that should be there, and hot springs frequently appeared in places that shouldn't be there. This caused the flowers and plants in the Sea of Flowers to become lifeless. Xian. Annie Wang called her daughter's name, while Luo Qingshan continued forward with the flashlight. Because it was very late and the fog was very thick, the ground was very muddy. Even with the flashlight, Luo Qingshan found it difficult to see her surroundings. The next second, she felt her feet slip and she fell directly into a puddle. My God! Luo Qingshan slightly knit her brows and said to herself, Why is there such a big puddle? She hadn't found Xian yet, and she had fallen into a puddle. When she picked up the flashlight, a figure with a face covered in blood appeared in front of her. Luo Qingshan was stunned. She took a deep breath and shone the flashlight at that person again. A stranger's face was stuck in the cab, and only his head was exposed. Luo Qingshan knit her brows and walked forward. She gently sighed with her right hand, and his neck was no longer breathing. The car was still warm, and there was a steady stream of smoke coming out. This was a car accident. He should have hit the guardrail on the circular road and fallen down. The circular road only led to one road, which was to Xinghe Village. There had been a lot of people coming to Xinghe Village recently, but there were very few people who came this late. Since it was a taxi, there should be someone in the back seat. She raised her right hand and forcefully opened the door. Because of the deformation caused by the impact, the door opened very easily. But at that moment, she almost cried out in surprise. Big brother Jiusheng. Luo Qingshan was stunned. She immediately squeezed into the back seat to check on his injuries. He looked exactly the same as the original him. His facial features were as distinct as a sculpture. Even with his eyes closed, he still gave off a natural domineering aura. It was as if the heavens had chosen the best jade to carve a peerless work of art. It carried a noble air. He was still Du Jiusheng. He had never changed. However, under this face was a pair of eyes that made her feel unfamiliar. She felt an inexplicable sadness in her heart. But at this moment, this kind of sadness did not surround her, because fear occupied her more. Her heart was pounding, and she even felt that her breathing had become rapid. She had never thought that their next meeting would be in such a situation. It was as if the aura of death had already spread around her before the story had even begun. It was a good thing Du Jiusheng was still alive. Perhaps it was because the dolls were placed in the back, but when the taxi landed, the dolls blocked the damage caused by the acceleration. There was a bit of blood on his head, so he had to be sent to the hospital first. When Luo Qingshan was about to call 120, Du Jiusheng slightly knit his brows and slowly opened his eyes. Luo Qingshan trembled as her phone fell into the hole with a dong sound. This chapter ends. Hurry up and read it. Chapter 3355. He let out a muffled humph. His deep eyes were half closed, and there was a faint light in them. The way he looked at her was incomparably unfamiliar. Luo Qingshan's nervous back stiffened. There were some memories that only she had, but he didn't remember them. If one didn't experience this personally, no one would understand. Who are you? A cool as water voice cut through her thoughts. Luo Qingchen blinked in a daze before saying, I'm just a road. Before Luo Qingchen could finish, Du Jiusheng cut her off. He knit his brows as a strange look appeared in his eyes. Who am I? Du Jiusheng's expression was a bit pained as he held his temple. Why can't I remember anything? You. Luo Qingchen's eyes trembled. You don't remember? What should I remember? Du Jiusheng narrowed his eyes as he looked at her. Do we know each other? Luo Qingchen looked into his eyes, and it was like everything around her was moving, as if time was passing through the corridors of life. His eyes were as dark as the stars, but they lit up her world. Of course we know each other. Luo Qingchen seriously looked at him. Moreover, we've known each other for a long time. 1,000 years? Or 10,000 years? It had been too long. She even forgot how she fell in love with Du Jiusheng. She just knew that he had said many sweet words, but the one that left the deepest impression on her was, life is wasted, but life is rich. So we know each other. Do you know who I am? Du Jiusheng moved forward, and Luo Qingchen quickly took a step back. She took a deep breath and said, I'll take you back first. There will be a commotion soon. Although she hadn't carefully checked Du Jiusheng's situation, it seemed like there was nothing wrong. With such a big car accident, the police should be here soon. Now that Du Jiusheng was trying his best to buy the people of Star River Village, with his status and position, if she missed this chance, it wouldn't be easy to see him again. She wasn't afraid of Su Mu or Yukon Kan, but if the one standing against her was Du Jiusheng, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to make a rational decision. Luo Qingchen slowly reached out her hand. Du Jiusheng was surprised at first before putting his hand in her palm. Luo Qingchen pulled a bit, and he came to her side. So where are we going? Go home. Then what's my name? And Luo Qingchen thought for a moment and said, Jiusheng. He wanted to live for a long, long time and not live for 9 lifetimes just to protect one person. Galaxy Village. Aunt Wang had been waiting for her at the entrance of the village. Xinxin had been found, but she didn't see her. After searching for a long time, she had to come back with Xinxin first. When she was about to go out to look for her again, Luo Qingchen came back with a strange man. This is Luo Qingchen took Du Jiusheng's hand and said, my boyfriend. What? Aunt Wang and Du Jiusheng revealed surprised looks at the same time. But although the latter was surprised, he didn't push her away at all. It was like when she took his hand, he felt that it was familiar. If he really was her boyfriend, he should have loved her very much before. End of this chapter. Hurry up and read the latest chapters. Chapter 3356. I always thought that you and Xiao ran. Annie Wang revealed an awkward look before saying with a smile, Your boyfriend is really handsome. This is my first time seeing such a handsome young man. Wasn't he handsome? He was Big Brother Jiusheng. Luo Qingchen pursed her lips into a smile. Annie Wang, my dad is on duty at the hospital today, right? Yes. I'll go over. Luo Qingchen said. You can go back first. Otherwise, Xin will run around again. All right. Annie Wang didn't ask since it was someone else's matter whether he was her boyfriend or not. Not to mention that Luo Qingchen was the diviner that everyone believed in. She had already helped her find Xin, so it wasn't good to ask about other people's matters. Xingyi Village only had one hospital. Although it was a small hospital, it had all the basic equipment. Luo Qingchen felt that no matter what, she had to check Du Jiusheng. After all, he had fallen off the cliff and the driver had died, so he had lost his memories. Xingyi Village was at its most beautiful at night. The sky was filled with stars, and there was a clear sound in the middle of the night, giving people a very peaceful feeling. Luo Qingchen didn't let go of his hand, and Du Jiusheng didn't let go either. So, are you really my girlfriend? His voice was very nice to hear. It wasn't cold like before, rather there was a bit of gentleness to it. What? I don't look like it? Luo Qingchen proudly looked up at him. I know that you have a special mark behind your ear. Don't you think I am? Du Jiusheng was a bit surprised before revealing a gentle smile. So my girlfriend is this beautiful. Zay, you trying to please me this quickly? She suddenly liked this kind of Du Jiusheng. He was firmly standing in front of her, It wasn't a distance that couldn't be reached in a few steps. Of course I have to please you, Du Jiusheng said with a helpless smile. After all, don't remember anyone. When he opened his eyes, he was surrounded by mist. She was standing under the moonlight, and it was like a ray of light had entered his life. It really was a ray of light. He didn't remember anything, but he remembered the warmth he felt when that ray of light entered his life. Actually, there might be more things that you don't remember than you think. Luo Qingshan took a deep breath. Her eyes were slightly red, and the corners of her mouth pulled out a faint smile. But what's the point of remembering? In this world, except for life and death, everything else is trivial. It was probably because they had experienced too many life and death separations, so it didn't matter if they didn't have memories. As long as he was alive, nothing else mattered. At the village hospital, Luo Qingqin's father, Luo Shi, is an ordinary doctor in the hospital. Although he can only treat some minor problems, he has helped a lot of people in the village. Dad, can you turn on the machine and check on my friend? What's wrong with your friend? Luo Shi glanced at him and said, doesn't seem to have any problems. Du Jiusheng looked at her with an innocent look and asked, didn't you say that it was your boyfriend? What boyfriend? The way Luo Shi looked at Du Jiusheng instantly changed. It was like he was looking at an object. After all, every daughter was her father's lover in their previous life. A man had suddenly appeared, and it was such an excellent man who stole his daughter. Luo Shi naturally felt a bit uncomfortable. But it was a good thing that this man was really handsome. End of this chapter. Chapter 33:57. Luo Qingqin had an awkward look on her face as she immediately said, right. My boyfriend. Your boyfriend is actually... Dad, this isn't important. Luo Qingqin pushed Du Jiusheng forward. Can you check him first? Luo Shi looked at the wound on the back of his head and said with a frown, come in with me first. Half an hour later, in the duty room, Du Jiusheng was in the infusion room, and there was only her and her dad in the duty room. According to the film, his head was hit, and he has a slight concussion. Luo Shi said to Luo Qingqin, but the head was hit quite seriously and the hippocampus was affected, so it's very likely he lost his memories. As expected, Luo Qingqin knit her brows and said, is there a way for him to recover his memories? It definitely isn't possible here. Luo Shi shook his head and said, it might be possible if it was a big hospital, but the hippocampus can recover in some situations, so he might be able to remember after a while. How long is after a while? It could be 10 days, half a month, or it could be 10 or 20 years, or it could even be an entire lifetime. Luo Shi looked at his daughter and asked, is he really your boyfriend? Or is there something you haven't told Dad? Father and daughter were connected by heart, because even if Luo Qingqin didn't say anything to Luo Shi, he could still feel some clues. He really is my boyfriend. He accidentally fell just now, and it's quite serious. Luo Qingqin waved her hand and said, in short, just help him take care of his wound. I'll bring him to the altar later. All right, Luo Shi asked out of habit, have you eaten? But Luo Qingqin wasn't thinking about this at all. She was most worried about how to hide Du Jiusheng's identity and how to solve the current problem of Star River Village as soon as possible. The reason why Su Mu had used such despicable methods was because the villagers of Xinghe Village did not want to sell their homes. Therefore, even if Su Mu signed the deed, it only caused Xinghe Village to fall into a state of panic. If everyone worked together, they could still protect their home. Du Jiusheng was smarter than Su Mu. Perhaps he wasn't just smarter, he was more ruthless. He knew the fastest way to get to the Star River Village, and that was to break the hearts of the people. Once the morale of the villagers was broken, most of them would choose to sell their homes. Then Du Jiusheng taking it to the Star River Village would become a matter of course. But selling the village was just the beginning, not the end. Because of the fortune teller, the village itself was related to the gods. Once they sold off the existence that had protected them for generations, bad luck would follow. This was the idea of the previous host and some of the villagers who weren't willing to sell the village. Therefore, the previous host wanted to protect the village no matter what. But there were many problems with Star River Village, and the biggest problem was, as Du Jiusheng said, because the terrain here didn't allow it. There were no hot springs where there should be hot springs, no bridges where there should be bridges, and the hotel wasn't in the right place. The people of Star River Village wanted to build an amusement park paradise, an integrated resort. But based on the current situation, it was indeed very difficult. Goodnight was the person who guessed that the person who lost her memory, Lu Li's neighbor. You peeked at Lu Li's draft, right? End of this chapter. Chapter 3358. Luo Qingshun slowly walked to the infusion room, and Du Jiusheng was looking out the window while giving the infusion. Star River Village's night was very beautiful, with the sky filled with stars. If there wasn't any light around, it was like being in the Milky Way. But Du Jiusheng slightly knit his brows, looking like a troubled old man. He was still that good-looking, like a gentle spring breeze that blew in her heart. She would never get tired of looking at him. Luo Qingshun stood there, and her lips couldn't help curling into a faint smile. How good would it be if time could stop at this moment? Life would be like a dream, and time would be peaceful. Are you thinking about your past? Luo Qingshun slowly came forward to give him a cup of hot water. What are the minds of people who have lost their memories like? Can you tell me? She was very happy that she could meet him in this kind of situation and talk to him. Even if he didn't have any memories of the past, she was still happy. Du Jiusheng's lips curled into a helpless smile. It's probably only you. These weren't words of love, but it was better than words of love. Luo Qingshun heard this, and there was a faint blush on her face. So what am I like in your eyes? Du Jiusheng didn't answer her question, but rather he said with a bit of emotion, although I don't have any memories, I should have loved you very much before. Luo Qingshun was a bit surprised. Looking at his eyes, she suddenly felt like a generation had passed. Du Jiusheng, Du Jiusheng, you who don't have any memories, why do you think this? Du Jiusheng could see the doubt in Luo Qingshun's eyes and said with a chuckle, because as long as I'm close to you, my heart will beat faster. Luo Qingshun suddenly said, so Big Brother Jiusheng also has a secret that can't be told. He never said that his heart would beat faster when he was close to her. If it wasn't for Du Jiusheng losing his memories, she definitely wouldn't have heard this from him. A secret that can be told. Du Jiusheng gave a shrug and said with a faint smile, didn't I tell you already? Luo Qingshun snorted. But you didn't tell me before. So it's like this. In the past, I probably loved you very much. Luo Qingshun didn't answer him immediately. Instead, she looked out of the window as if she was searching for memories from a long time ago. After a long time, he said, but that was a long time ago. Du Jiusheng would never understand the meaning of her words, but a long, long time ago in another space and time. He really, really loved her. Other than scanning his brain, Luo Qingshun also did a full body check with Du Jiusheng. He really was lucky. Other than a few small abrasions, he didn't even have a fracture. Luo Qingshun suddenly had a feeling that Big Brother Jiusheng of this world was a gift from the heavens. It was a big gift. In order to prevent the wound from getting infected, Luo Shi told Luo Qingshun that she had to bring Du Jiusheng here for 3 days after the infusion. If he had a fever, he had to be sent to the hospital immediately. Luo Qingshun said that she would remember this. When she left, Luo Shi didn't forget to secretly say, you have to report to your mom when you bring your boyfriend home. She's old and can't be scared. Dad, you're also old. Luo Qingshun gave a shrug and said with a naughty smile, you're very calm. That's because I have to admit something. Luo Qingshun was a bit surprised as she asked, what is it? It's that my baby girl's eyes are really high. End of this chapter. Hurry up and read it. Chapter 3359. Although he was very shocked that Luo Qingshun had a boyfriend, because the other side was too handsome and had lost his memories, he couldn't believe it. To a certain extent, people with blank memories were the most infatuated and loyal. Although Star River Village was a small village, if he was willing to stay here, he could stay here forever. Thank you for Dad's praise. Luo Qingshun said with a soft laugh. Mom should be asleep. I'll bring him back to the altar first. The previous host's home was actually one with the altar. The first floor was the altar, and the second and third floors were their home. Du Jiusheng's mental state was much better after the four. She took a set of Luo Shi's clothes for him and said, "Go take a shower first. There's blood on your clothes. I'll wash them for you." Du Jiusheng took the clothes and looked down at his own clothes. "No need to wash them. Just throw them away. There's so much blood, it's hard to wash them off." Luo Qingchen was a bit surprised before saying with a nod, "All right." She felt that something was strange, but she couldn't tell what it was. When Du Jiusheng was taking a shower, Yiran came looking for her, looking a bit flustered. "Qingchen, my Auntie Wang said that you fell. Are you all right?" Yiran slightly knit her brows. "Do you want to go to the hospital?" I'm fine. Luo Qingchen waved her hand when she heard this. "It's nothing. Did you specially come here?" Yiran looked around before saying, "Auntie Wang said that you brought a boy back. Did she make a mistake or—" "It's true." Luo Qingchen pursed her lips into a smile. "How could such a big person make a mistake?" Boyfriend. Luo Qingchen seriously replied, not hiding anything at all. No matter how many worlds she went through, Du Jiusheng was Du Jiusheng. No one could replace his position in her heart. Even if Yiran was the previous host's playmate or childhood friend, it wouldn't change anything for her. Yiran was stunned for a moment. Then, she smiled awkwardly and said, "When did you have a boyfriend?" "Why didn't I know? Yeah, it's really early. Do I have to report everything to you?" Just as Luo Qingchen was about to explain, a cool voice entered their ears. There was the scent of shower gel in the air. Although it was the scent of her family shower gel, it seemed like the scent was different after Du Jiusheng used it. Yiran heard this, and his eyes fell onto Du Jiusheng. At this moment, there was an inexplicable sense of oppression around him. Even though he didn't know who the other party was, he could feel the other party's aura. "I'm Qingchen's friend. Is there a problem with a friend's question?" Yiran frowned and said, "I'm just worried that she will be deceived. There's no need for that." Du Jiusheng's lips curled into a faint smile. "Because I never lied to my girlfriend." He deliberately emphasized the word girlfriend, showing that he owned Luo Qingchen. Although he didn't have any memories, that feeling of jealousy was clearly displayed in his heart. Yiran wanted to say something, but seeing the happy look in Luo Qingchen's eyes, he swallowed back the words he wanted to say. "All right, I understand." Yiran looked at Luo Qingchen and said, "Rest well tonight. There are many things to do tomorrow." "What is it?" "My dad said that the Su family's people are here. This chapter ends. Hurry up and read the latest chapters." Chapter 3360. Luo Qingchen should have thought that Sumu wouldn't be able to do anything to Empress Yi, so she would think of another way. But she never thought that it would come this quickly. She didn't even have time to prepare. At 10:30 at night, Luo Qingchen found the map of the Star River Resort after taking a shower. She didn't understand much about construction, so she didn't know where to start looking at the blueprint. "Are you drawing the blueprint?" Du Jiusheng was standing behind her. There was a familiar aura that slowly came from him, making her heart more unsettled. "I don't know how to draw, but I want to see some problems." Luo Qingchen knit her brows. "But it's no use even if you know, you can't change anything." Du Jiusheng focused on looking at the map of the Star River Village. His long lashes were like silhouettes that flickered under the warm yellow light. At that moment, Luo Qingchen felt her heart beating uncontrollably, and there was even a faint blush that appeared on her face. If she was flustered, it would be very appropriate to use the word flustered at this moment. She didn't know how long passed, but she knew that this atmosphere made her feel very comfortable. There was a feeling that she wanted to stay here forever. "This is the map of this place." After a while, his cold voice slowly sounded. "What are you looking at this blueprint for?" "That's right." Luo Qingchen suddenly thought of something as she looked at him and asked, "How do you know?" "Here." His slender finger pointed at a place on the map. "It's the place you came to find me." It had to be said, Du Jiusheng had a very sharp eye for architectural blueprints. Of course, he didn't just have a sharp eye for blueprints, he also had sharp eyes for other things. Luo Qingchen gave a slight nod before slightly knitting her brows. "Although we are a resort, The terrain and soil aren't suitable for a resort at all. It is indeed very unsuitable. Du Jiusheng was surprised when he said this, as if something had suddenly flashed in his mind. Although it was very short, he felt that perhaps he had some strong points related to architecture before. "Are you so sure?" Luo Qingshan sighed and said, "Because in half a year, there will be a rare meteor shower here. At that time, there will be a lot of people coming to Xinghe village to watch the meteor shower. Therefore, many people in the business circle want to buy it and build a business circle here as soon as possible." Du Jiusheng pointed at several places on the map and said, "This place is indeed very suitable for building a business district." Luo Qingshan thought that he would give her some advice, but she didn't expect that he would stand on the opposite side of her. Sure enough, even if they had lost their memories, they were still enemies. This had not changed at all. Du Jiusheng could feel the faint anger in her eyes and said, "I didn't mean it. I was just casually analyzing it. I don't really understand. Please don't be angry." The moment he opened his eyes, she was the only one in his world. She said that he was her boyfriend. She had held his hand and brought him to this place. Actually, his heart was filled with incomparable panic. He was afraid that those hands would let go of him and let him stay in this strange world. Into this chapter. Hurry up and read the latest chapters.